Chapter 12:30. Lu Yurong glanced at him but did not refute. She knew she could not hide it from him. Chuli laughed. You've got guts. You're quite bold. Who would have thought such a shocking thing would be discovered? Lu Yurong scoffed with a helpless look on her face. She was a newly appointed official, and she wanted to rectify the foul atmosphere in the Secret Guardians' Hall. Guyu had only been in office for a short while, but he had caused a lot of trouble in the Secret Guardians' Hall. She was too lazy to recover bit by bit, so she went straight to the point. She wanted to scare them off in one go. Investigating and killing the disciples of the Holy Church of Light was the most effective. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light in the fairies' capital were people who risked their lives to meet death. They all treated death as a shortcut to ascend to the Outland. Once these people were discovered, they would perish together. Even if they could be caught, they would quickly escape with their lives and ascend to the Great Light State. The secret guardians of the Secret Guardians' Hall trembled in fear when faced with such people. They had to be alert or they would die if they were not careful. The Secret Guardians' Hall became very efficient when they were nervous. They quickly found information about Prince Kang's consort. Chen Donghai reported in public, so she could not suppress it. Otherwise, the Secret Guardians would look down on her. She would not be able to do what she wanted, and it would take her more time and effort. After thinking for a while, she decided to continue investigating and not give up halfway. Of course, she understood that Chen Donghai wanted to go against her, so she assigned him a task to send him far away. She would deal with him later. Chuli said, but using the consort as bait isn't a good idea. She's a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong said coldly, she's not a consort. Chuli shook his head. She didn't do anything to harm the Ji dynasty. Her existence is harmful to the Ji dynasty. Lu Yurong sneered. Prince Kong asked you for help. Are you going to plead on his behalf? The Emperor knows about this too. Chuli said, but he's too embarrassed to point it out. I won't stop. Lu Yurong shook her head. If she really didn't harm the Ji dynasty, then forget it. Otherwise, I can only hand her over to the Emperor. Chuli said, seems like you know what to investigate. He speculated maliciously that the Emperor might also be curious about whether Princess Kong had done anything harmful to the Great Ji all these years, so he did not say anything. The Emperor was always suspicious and alone. No matter who became the Emperor, it was the same. Lu Yurong said, if Princess Kong did not do it, I will not accuse her. Chuli gave a fist salute and smiled. Thank you very much. Whether it was done or not was often decided by Lu Yurong's words. If it was not found out, it could be said that it was suspicious. If it was found out, it could be said that it was wrong. In short, Lu Yurong's words determined Princess Kang's situation. Of course, even if Princess Kong did something harmful to the Great Ji dynasty, the Emperor would probably not kill her. At most, Prince Kong would be sent to supervise the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum. If Lu Yurong wanted to establish her authority, she could just say that Princess Kong was suspicious. The Emperor would send Prince Kong and the others to the Imperial Mausoleum, and Lu Yurong's authority would be established. From then on, who in Luoyang would dare to be presumptuous with her? So he owed Lu Yurong another favor. Lu Yurong asked, would she really dare to betray the Holy Church of Light? The Holy Church of Light might have forgotten about her. Chuli shook his head. The Holy Church of Light would never forgive a traitor. Lu Yurong said, so it's hard for her to survive. If she investigated, the Holy Church of Light would definitely know. Even if they did not care about her, they would remember now. The best way is to play dead. Lu Yurong said, I'll get someone to kill her. Chuli smiled. Both of them had the same idea. Playing dead was a way to solve the problem once and for all. Unfortunately, Prince Kong and his wife had not made up their mind. Chuli said, are you going to send someone to the Holy Church of Light as a spy? Lu Yurong chuckled and did not say anything. Chuli said, maybe you don't have a predecessor, so you're not clear about some things. Don't go undercover in the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong frowned. They're only allowed to come to the Great Ji Dynasty. We can't go there? You can go to other places, even Jade Capital, but don't go to the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li frowned. The Secret Guardians Hall has sent many secret guardians to the Holy Church of Light over the years, but none of them succeeded. The saint of the Holy Church of Light, Sun Mingyue, has the ability to see through people's hearts. Going there will only result in death. That powerful? Lu Yurong pondered. No wonder. She did not find any information about the Holy Church of Light in the Secret Guardians Hall's dossier. Chu Li said, Don't tell me you've already sent them out? I'm choosing. Lu Yurong said, I thought people from May Air Courtyard would be suitable. Chu Li smiled. Lu Yurong said with a smile, Chu Li, your May Air Courtyard is really powerful. No wonder Gu Yu was so mad. May Air Courtyard has the most grandmasters, as well as tracking experts and investigation experts. The best of them are in May Air Courtyard, but they only listen to you. Chu Li said, I'll tell them. If this goes on, I'll be ruthless. Lu Yurong said. Chu Li nodded. Don't forget our promise. Of course. Lu Yurong said, Chu Li, I realize that you're very familiar with the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li frowned and stared at her. What are you trying to say? Before Gu Yu died, he said that you're in cahoots with the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong's eyes were clear as water as she glanced at him. Chu Li frowned. Why are you bringing this up again? Gu Yu may be incompetent and muddle-headed, but it might not be a lie. Lu Yurong shook her head. He knows that slandering you is useless. He must have found evidence. Chu Li laughed. You're such a whimsical person. Lu Yurong was unmoved. Her watery eyes were still scanning his face, trying to see every change in his expression. Unfortunately, Chu Li's expression was calm and his smile was not forced. Lu Yurong smiled. I think you know the Holy Church of Light very well. There's only one explanation. Chu Li smiled but did not say anything. He was not anxious at all. Lu Yurong had been testing him. Seeing how calm he was, she became more certain of her guess. She said slowly, Chu Li, did you sneak into the Holy Church of Light? Chu Li laughed. You're daydreaming again. The saint of the Holy Church of Light can see through people's hearts. No one in the Ji dynasty knows about this. The Secret Guardians Hall didn't have this information. How did you know? Lu Yurong smiled. I guessed, Chu Li said. You don't say things that you're not sure about. Lu Yurong smiled and shook her head. Her eyes were still fixed on him. She did not give up on testing him. She smiled. So you're very sure. The only possibility is that you've seen it yourself. There's no such thing. I'm very busy. I don't have time to bother with them. You should think about serious matters. Don't bother me all the time. Chu Li scoffed. Lu Yurong shook her head. Time. Others can't, but you have divine powers. You can travel thousands of miles in an instant. Chu Li rubbed his forehead. Your way of thinking is really… I don't know what to say. You admit it, right? Lu Yurong smiled. She enjoyed this feeling very much. Finally, she could hold her head high and suppress him. Chu Li said, There's no such thing. Why would I admit it? I'll tell the people in the May Air Courtyard. Think of an idea about Consort Kong faking her death. I'll tell them. Chapter 12:31. Chu Li's expression changed slightly and he nodded slowly. This was another favor. Even though he knew she was doing it on purpose, and that he would have to repay her in the future, he was still grateful. He closed fist, saluted, and disappeared from the gazebo. Lu Yurong sat down thoughtfully and looked at the sparkling lake under the moonlight. Her mind worked like lightning. She replayed the scenes of her interaction with Chu Li in front of her. She analyzed the changes in his expression, the words he said, and the changes in his tone, trying to figure out if she was right. If there was anyone who could sneak into the Holy Church of Light, it would be him. Only he had the ability. However, he was a centurion. He should not have done such a dangerous thing. Sneaking into the Holy Church of Light was dangerous. How could a centurion like him take such a risk? Chuli appeared in a forest outside the Valley of Snow Lunar Pavilion in a flash. There were not many masters within a 10-mile radius. Without the feeling of an impending storm, the people who were eyeing them left and Snow Lunar Pavilion returned to peace. In the depths of the forest, 8 miles away from Chuli, he saw a group of people in black huddled on a tree branch, unmoving. It was as if they were one with the tree branch. Coupled with the clothes they wore, it was hard to tell from the outside. Chuli knew they were masters from the Holy Church of Light at a glance. There were 6 of them and their cultivation level was far higher than Lihanyan's. They looked like they had waited for more than a day. This Lu Yurong. Thinking of this, he disappeared again in a flash and appeared in Lihanyan's house. He did not care about the boundaries between men and women. It was already night and Snow Lunar Valley was brightly lit. The waterside pavilion he was in was dark. There was only a faint light reflected from the outside. It was unusually weak, as if it was 2 different worlds. When he appeared, he saw Lihanyan sitting on the bed to heal her injuries. Chuli frowned. Lihanyan opened her eyes. The originally dark waterside pavilion was suddenly lit up. The room was electrified. "Big Brother Chu," she said softly. Her voice was hoarse. She was heavily injured. "What happened?" Chuli asked. He went forward and grabbed her cold wrist. He probed with his inner energy and observed with the omniscient mirror. He frowned when he saw his inner energy circulating in her body. "I'm fine," Lihanyan said quickly. Chuli scoffed. He leaped onto the bed and sat behind her. Then, he slapped her back a few times. Pfft! Lihanyan threw herself forward, her head out of the bed, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The darkness could not obstruct Chuli's gaze. He saw that the corner of her snow-white lips had been dyed dark red. It was a sight that stirred him to the core. Lihanyan's breathing became smoother all of a sudden, and the inner energy in her body flowed faster. It was completely different from before. Chuli's palm strikes were very precise. Every palm strike was aimed at the most crucial part of her body, striking at the hidden force and injuries in her body, causing them to collapse in one hit. Although she could not be healed immediately, it was close enough. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth surged and entered her body in an instant. Lihanyan felt as if her body was submerged in a cold spring. It was cold and comfortable at the same time. She wanted to let out a weird sound, but she held it in with all her might. Her face turned red. Chuli asked in a low voice, "How did you suffer such heavy injuries? Those guys outside?" "It's not them." Lihanyan shook her head. "I got injured while saving someone on the way." Chuli frowned. "It must be someone extraordinary to be able to injure you so badly." "A young man." Lihanyan smiled. "He's quite an interesting guy, but I didn't bring him back to Snow Lunar Pavilion." "Oh?" Chuli gave a faint smile. "Could it be that you've fallen for him? A beauty saving a hero? How is that possible?" Lihanyan curled her red lips and scoffed. "I don't like those stinky men." Chuli glared at her. Lihanyan thought to herself, "Of course, Big Brother Chu is different. I'm also a stinky man." Chuli said snappily, "All right, hurry up and treat your injuries." "Yes." Lihanyan smiled. She closed her eyes and channeled again. Her body was surging with a cool force that was exceptionally comfortable. She quickly calmed down and her spirit slowly left her body. Her thoughts gradually drifted away. She did not need to direct it as the spiritual energy automatically wrapped around her injuries. She did not know how long it took for her to wake up. When she opened her eyes, she realized that the sky was bright. It was already the morning of the next day. Chuli was sitting cross-legged behind her. He was motionless with his eyes closed, breathing deeply. She turned her head to look at him, and realized that his eyes were still closed. She stared at him curiously. She usually did not look at Chuli so closely. Suddenly, she felt a little unfamiliar, as if she did not know him at all. But then, a familiar feeling arose. His temperament was extremely unique. No one else could match him. What's wrong? Chu Li suddenly opened his eyes, startling her. She quickly turned her head away. Chu Li smiled. Is there something on my face? He knew that Li Hanyan admired him as a child. In fact, she had subtly regarded him as her father. Since her father's death, Chu Li had saved her when she was on the brink of death. He took care of her when she was at her weakest. He taught her martial arts and arranged for her future. Everything he did was like a father to his daughter. She unknowingly transferred the feelings she had for her father to Chu Li. It was almost unrelated to the relationship between a man and a woman. But he was not her biological father after all, so it was inevitable that there would be a hint of peculiarity. Li Hanyan blushed and shook her head. My injuries are healed. Thank you, Big Brother Chu. Why are you dawdling at such a crucial time? Hurry up and greet me. Chu Li said, You're forcing yourself. It's fine this time. If it weren't for that guy, I wouldn't have been injured at all. Li Hanyan shook her head. It's just a small injury. It's nothing. A small injury. Chu Li scoffed. Li Hanyan said, But I didn't expect that guy's palm energy to be so insidious. It kept acting up and getting worse. Looks like you focused too much on your swordsmanship and neglected your inner energy. Chu Li shook his head. Inner energy is also the foundation. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan quickly nodded. Big Brother Chu, do you want breakfast? I'll get it. Chu Li said impatiently, You dislike me? Ruani is miserable? Responsible? Li Hanyan looked at him with a bitter face. All right, I'll listen. Chu Li scoffed. It's good that you listen. From tomorrow onwards, rearrange your schedule. Swordsmanship will take 30 minutes. 40? Li Hanyan said carefully. Chu Li frowned. 30. All right. Li Hanyan nodded helplessly. Her red lips opened and closed. Chu Li glared at her. How about 2? 3. Li Hanyan quickly smiled. Chu Li scoffed. You'll know in the future. If you don't have enough inner energy, you won't be able to use your swordsmanship no matter how powerful it is. Don't think that the swordsmanship I taught you is a trick. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan said dejectedly. Chu Li finally let her go. Did those people outside see it? Yes. Li Hanyan said, They're from the Holy Church of Light. I'll deal with them sooner or later. She was injured, so she was willing but powerless. Chapter 12:32. Chu Li said, If that's the case, I won't interfere. It's up to you. Of course, Big Brother Chu, don't worry. I won't be careless. Li Hanyan smiled and said, I know Big Brother Chu is worried that I'll be too proud. There's also your martial arts. Chu Li shook his head. Since they're here, it means that they have the confidence to kill you. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan nodded hurriedly. Brother Chu is good at everything except a little? Gather? Bihuang? Silent promise welding? Fence? Aluminum said stunned? Even the 4 strontium words choked, snuggled up to the Diruyu, the kitchen and sighed? Ruakue? Evil spirits. Chu Li glared at her, waved his hand and disappeared in a flash. Li Hanyan's smile slowly faded as she glared in the direction of the Snow Lunar Pavilion's entrance. These people from the Holy Church of Light were really persistent. They were so annoying. Unfortunately, the Holy Church of Light was much stronger than the 4 major sects of the Ji dynasty. They would not stop their revenge just because he had taught them a lesson and killed a few of their masters. Instead, they would become even more ruthless. Provoking them was equivalent to provoking trouble. They had to keep fighting until one side fell. No matter how he thought about it, he was the one who fell first. He was not Big Brother Chu, who could deal with an entire sect alone. She furrowed her brows and pondered for a moment. In the end, she decided that she could not go all out to kill them. Instead, she wanted to maintain a stalemate. No matter how powerful she was, It was impossible for her to defeat the entire Holy Church of Light. If she won once, they would send even more powerful masters. In the end, she would still lose. Thus, he could only hide his abilities and not show off too much. Thinking of this, she shook her head. She wondered if Brother Chu would be disappointed if he knew about her decision. He had just taught her a wonderful sword technique, but she was the first one to back out. Chu Li stood outside the snowy moon valley and saw Li Hanyan's thoughts. He nodded in satisfaction. She had indeed matured. If it was in the past, she would have killed without a care in the world. She wanted to kill until they were terrified. Young people were full of vigor, and it was hard to go against her nature. She didn't expect that she would be able to break away from this most instinctive reaction in such a short time. Rationality could suppress emotions, and she would not be reckless and impulsive. She could also make people feel at ease. Chu Li pondered for a moment, then disappeared in a flash. Spirit Crane's Peak. The morning sun was exceptionally bright, the sky was azure, and the air was fresh and pleasant. It had just snowed in the Great Ji dynasty, but it was still as warm as spring here. The fruits on the tree were getting more and more plump, and the fragrance was so rich that it permeated the entire Spirit Crane's Peak. Shao Qi and Shao Shi were picking the fruits from the tree. They no longer picked up the ones that had fallen to the ground, and the bunches of fruits on the tree could not be finished. They ate half of it while Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi wanted to personally brew fruit wine for the remaining half. This way, they would not have to worry about others finding out about their origins. They could also drink it often, and it would be easy to store. Li was. Ti Li tu 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 ti tu 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 him. Ti tu tu Li. Li he tu 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 tu, ti 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 to them tu 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 to them. About. Chu Li could clearly see that their center of gravity was constantly changing to offset the strong force of the strong wind. This in itself contained an extremely brilliant body technique. He complemented this method of constantly exercising with the Spirit Crane technique and gained a deeper understanding of the Spirit Crane technique. This short period of time was equivalent to studying the Spirit Crane technique assiduously for half a month. Ever since he got the Spirit Crane technique, he relied on his familiarity with the Spirit Cranes to cultivate it. He never expected the Spirit Crane technique to be so difficult. It was completely different from its name. The worst thing about the Spirit Crane technique was that it looked easy but could not be achieved. The simpler the secret manual, the more effort it would take to cultivate it. One had to figure it out himself, just like walking a route. The key to the Spirit Crane technique was to observe the Spirit Cranes and understand the world. It required not only the movements but also the state of mind. The former and latter were extremely difficult for people outside the 100,000 hills. Chu Li had the observation of the Spirit Cranes and was blessed by nature, but he could not understand the unique state of mind. He vaguely understood why Green Deer Cliff was so mysterious and forbade their disciples from leaving the mountain. They were using the environment of Green Deer Cliff to cultivate their state of mind and speed up the cultivation of the Spirit Crane technique. He understood that to master the Spirit Crane technique, he had to return to Green Deer Cliff. Cultivating in an environment like Green Deer Cliff was the most beneficial for the advancement of the Spirit Crane technique. More importantly, the last 3 levels of the Spirit Crane technique. First observe the general idea, then understand it. That would be another world. If one did not know the final goal and only focused on cultivating, one's progress would be slow. You're not going to care about Prince Kong? Xiao Shi tossed a yellow fruit to him and asked, "The fairy's capital is spreading like wildfire. Everyone is talking about it. This time, Prince Kong is really famous." "The Crown Prince did it on purpose, didn't he?" Xiao Qi asked. Chu Li said, "Our Crown Prince is not a generous person." Before he became the Crown Prince, Lung Jinghua was solemn but not harsh. After he became the Crown Prince, he suddenly became harsh and ruthless. Why can't he tolerate Prince Kong? Xiao Qi frowned. If he can't tolerate Prince Kong, it should be Prince Bao, right? Prince Bao used to be in charge of the army, and there were still many of his old subordinates in the army. His words were very useful in the army. How could he not provoke the emperor and the crown prince? Prince Kong, on the other hand, was not the same. He was just a prince who had nothing better to do. He was well behaved and would usually eat and drink with Prince Bao. He did not do any evil or good deeds, so it was very easy for people to overlook him. Unexpectedly, he became famous in Fairy's capital because of this matter. People were criticizing him for being ridiculous and not caring about the country. Chu Li said, "With these old men around, he'll be restrained in the future. It's better to ask him to leave before he ascends the throne and when the emperor is still on the throne. That way, he won't be criticized. If he dealt with the princes after he ascended the throne, his reputation would be affected. People would think that he was narrow-minded and could not tolerate others. It would not be good to leave a bad impression." "People's hearts are too complicated," Xiao Qi said. Lu Yurong purposely caused this matter to spread like wildfire. Why did she do this? It was obvious that she had thought it through before she dared to do it. Only Lu Yurong and Chu Li could handle this matter calmly and skillfully. To others, they were powerless. Chu Li smiled. "Actually, it's very simple. As the Crown Prince's advisor, she only needs to consider the Crown Prince. The others are not important. If she offended them, then so be it." "Chu Li, you should be the secret guardian commander." Xiao Shi shook her head. She always felt that Chu Li was the most suitable. It was a pity to let Lu Yurong take the position. Chu Li smiled without saying a word. Chapter 1233. Chu Li frowned as he looked at the 4 black lights and shook his head. "They really are courting death. Why did they come here to die?" Xiao Shi was puzzled. "I went back to check, but there were no records. Logically speaking, they knew they couldn't defeat the spirit cranes and never succeeded. Why would they still come here to die? Maybe the spirit cranes have a grudge against them," Chu Li said. He could faintly feel their hatred. Even if they were to die, they would bite the spirit cranes. If they could bite the spirit cranes, they would die a worthy death. This might be their tradition. These spirit snakes were psychic creatures. Their intelligence was not inferior to humans. However, they were cold-blooded animals. They did not have high EQ. The only thing they had was hatred. Once they were provoked, even if they died, their companions would take revenge. They would not rest until they were dead. "The spirit cranes didn't provoke them, right?" Xiao Shi said. Chu Li shook his head. "The spirit cranes like to eat their gall bladder. They ate quite a lot." "I see." Xiao Shi nodded. "Then it's no wonder they went crazy." Xiao Qi said, "That's how it is. One thing feeds on another." She pulled out her sword and shook it lightly. It was like a pool of autumn water swaying on the sword. The light became brighter and brighter. She channeled her energy into the sword, or else she would not be able to break the snake's skin. Ding 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 ding. She suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Xiao Shi. The sword lights fell on the 2 snakes like rain. The snakes' bodies were black and shiny like they were made of black iron. They looked soft but strong. Chu Li raised his palm and attacked. He performed the Heavenly King Palm. The surrounding spiritual energy was turbulent. It was the best environment for the Heavenly King Palm. He pushed his palm out. Suddenly, the surrounding spiritual energy was like a swallow returning to its nest. His palm energy was the nest and the surrounding spiritual energy was the swallow. His palm energy had only been pushed out for a meter, but it had already become a huge creature. It grew rapidly like a rolling snowball. In an instant, it had grown to the size of his body. It was shocking. He struck out with his palm again. This time, the palm force was different from before. It was gentle and soft, and after colliding with the huge palm force from before, the 2 palm forces rapidly shrank, going from the size of a body to the size of a fist. Their speed suddenly increased, like a flash of light. Bam, 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 bam. The two black snakes twisted their bodies but were unable to dodge. The heavenly king palm was too fast and arrived in an instant. They tumbled in the air and gradually loosened their bodies. By the time they landed on the ground, the two snakes were motionless, as soft as mud. Chuli let out a long sigh of relief and looked at his right palm in shock. He then looked at the two flying snakes. He knew how strong they were. They were truly invulnerable. The two black snakes in front of him that could not even withstand a single blow made him wonder if he had encountered them before. They did not seem to be invulnerable at all. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of metal clashing was still ringing, like the sound of rain hitting the pipa. It was crisp and sweet, with a special rhythm. It was Xiao Qi who stood in front of Xiao Shi and trapped the two snakes. Her swordsmanship was exquisite. Facing the two snakes, she could only defend and attack, forcing them to be unable to hurt her. However, she could not do anything to them. Even her treasured sword could not break their bodies. These two spirit snakes were different from the ones she had encountered before. They were tougher and faster. If she was careless, she would be bitten. She dared not be careless and had to be 120% vigilant. While she was attacking fiercely, a palm force suddenly appeared and hit the two snakes. The two snakes seemed to have been hit by a huge wave. They flew out involuntarily and rolled in the air. In the end, their bodies were straightened and motionless. It was obvious that they had been shocked to death. The palm force of the heavenly king palm was powerful and overbearing. Chuli suddenly laughed out loud. Xiao Shi ran to the side of the two spirit snakes and used a dry branch to poke them. She found that they were indeed dead. Xiao Qi quickly went to her side and glared at her. Xiao Shi said, "Younger sister, you are still far from Chuli." Xiao Qi looked at her angrily. "Second sister, are you trying to drive a wedge between us? Looks like you won't be able to catch up to him." Xiao Shi smiled. "From what I see, you shouldn't secretly exert your strength. Just follow behind him obediently. What's the point of wasting your energy?" "I like to cultivate." Xiao Qi was unconvinced. Chuli pulled out his long sword, but he could not cut the snake's skin. This time, the snake was stronger than before. He then sheathed his sword and began to practice the first form of the universe. He accumulated some of the unique inner energy of the first form of the universe and channeled it into his sword. Suddenly, his sword force became sharper and easily cut open the snake's skin. He took out the snake gallbladders and gave 2 to Xiao Shi. The remaining one was shared with Xiao Qi. Xiao Shi bitterly swallowed it and sighed. "This thing is so disgusting. I'm glad you guys can resist it." Xiao Qi said, "I won't give it to you next time." Xiao Shi smiled. "You can't bear to?" Chuli said, "This time, the snake's skin is excellent. Take it back and sew it well." "Yes, leave it to me," Xiao Shi said. "Let's go." "It's dangerous here," Xiao Qi said. Chuli shook his head. "You guys go back first. I need to think about it." "What are you thinking about?" Xiao Shi asked. Xiao Qi pulled her sleeve. "All right, you think about it," Xiao Shi said. Chuli hugged their waists and disappeared in a flash. He sent them back to the imperial residence of King An and then came back in a flash. He stood at his previous position and thought about the previous situation. So this was the heavenly king palm. Although he had discovered it before, it did not have such a strong effect. It seemed that the thicker the spiritual energy, the stronger the effect. It was really scary. The heavenly king palm could actually be performed outside of Hills Shirwan. What if he created an environment similar to Hills Shirwan? He disappeared and appeared on his own island in the High Duke's public house. Xue Ling was practicing the crescent palm. She was dressed in a green outfit and was full of youthfulness. She was cold and quiet. It was as if there was a layer of cold air around her. Chuli suddenly said, "Take this." Xue Ling took the opportunity to counter with her palm. Her crescent palm was at its peak. Her chi flow was smooth. Her whole body was unobstructed, and she felt unspeakably refreshed. She felt invincible and could destroy anything with one palm. She did not hold back and struck with her palm. Bang! She was sent flying. It was as if there was a rope pulling her from behind. She hit the wall of the courtyard. Xueling opened her red lips and looked at him in surprise. Chu Li smiled. How was my palm energy? What a strong palm energy, Xueling said helplessly, but it's so overbearing. She felt that her crescent palm was hit back at her. It was extremely strong and overbearing. Fortunately, she had eaten many spirit pills and rare items. Her body was unusually strong and tough. That was why she was not injured. Chu Li smiled. I only used half of my palm energy. What palm technique? Heavenly King Palm. Too bad you can't cultivate it. Chu Li shook his head. Your crescent palm is strong enough. Yes, Xueling nodded. Chapter 1234. Master, come again. Xueling scoffed. Her inner energy had become more and more refined. She was no longer as vulnerable as before. Although she was sent flying by his palm, she might be able to take it if she was prepared next time. It was a rare opportunity to spar with him. Bam 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 bam. Xueling was sent flying again and again. Chu Li struck with his palm. The Heavenly King's palm was not powerful. It was disappointing. At the same time, he used the life and death scripture to mobilize spiritual energy. Spiritual energy from all directions surged and instantly enveloped the Heavenly King's palm. Thus, the Heavenly King's palm transformed and devoured the spiritual energy ferociously. In the blink of an eye, it was completely devoured. The spiritual energy from the life and death scripture did not seem to be able to feed it in time. The Heavenly King's palm flew 3 to 4 meters before it expanded several times to the size of his body. Chu Li's second palm followed. The two palm energies merged and suddenly condensed into the size of a fist. It collided with Xueling's palm. Xueling could not resist this palm energy at all. She was like a sheep that was hit by a galloping horse. She was sent flying. The power of the Heavenly King's palm had increased tenfold under the support of spiritual energy. It was terrifying. In terms of toughness and dominance, it was better than any other palm technique he had cultivated. It was no wonder that the Heavenly King's palm could dominate the world during the era of many enlightened masters. Now that he had the Heavenly King's palm, his strength had increased tremendously. As he grew stronger, he felt that his martial arts was not enough. There was always someone better. Everyone he met was stronger than him. This made him feel helpless. This was luck. He had high hopes for the Heavenly King's palm. Unfortunately, he was disappointed when he cultivated it. Without spiritual energy, the Heavenly King's palm was like water without a source. He had been using the life and death scripture to channel spiritual energy to aid in the cultivation of the Heavenly King's palm. However, he did not know that the Heavenly King's palm did not require spiritual energy to cultivate, but rather, it was needed when it was used. Xueling was sent flying again and again, but every time, she would pounce on Xueling again and again. Her emerald green clothes were stained with mud. Her jade-like face was also stained with some grass. She lost some of her coldness and suddenly had the aura of a pretty daughter from a humble family. Her understanding of the crescent palm deepened and she learned a lot. With a master who could help her unleash her full strength and point out her weaknesses, her cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. The two of them practiced for more than 2 hours. Xueling had no idea how many times she had fallen. Again and again, he was already numb from the fall. All he knew was to get up and continue attacking. Finally, Chu Li waved his hand and stopped. Let's stop here for today. Master, please continue. I can do it, Xueling quickly said. Chu Li waved his hand. Don't rush for quick result. You can't get fat in one go. You have to take it step by step to have a solid foundation. All right. Xueling was infatuated with the feeling of improving at every moment. Chu Li smiled at her and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in Gale City and returned to his house. He sat on his bed and continued to cultivate. Dinghuijie was like a sword that was placed right in front of his throat and could pierce through at any moment. It was an extremely unpleasant feeling. It was already sunset. Chuli sat on his bed and used the omniscient mirror to observe the area within a 10-mile radius. Not far away, Gale Branch was bustling with activity as everyone was cultivating in the courtyard. Chuli was delighted to see this. He suddenly felt a little envious of these people. They could just cultivate all day long. Apart from cultivating, they did not have to worry about anything else as long as they followed orders. Their minds were pure and their cultivation progressed very quickly. Their lives were simple and happy. They were not like him who calculated all day long. His mind was as fast as lightning, and the number of calculations he had made was equivalent to half a lifetime for an ordinary person. If these innocent and happy members of the association were to be harmed by Dinghuijie, he would feel guilty. That was why he had to stay here and prevent Dinghuijie from killing anyone. The saint, Sun Mingyue, had promised to send top-notch masters to deal with Dinghuijie. However, Chuli was not at ease. Dinghuijie was well versed in divination. How could she not have predicted this? It should not be difficult for her to hide from the masters of the Holy Church of Light using divination. It should not be difficult for her to predict his location either. If she did not care about the loss of her lifespan and recklessly sought revenge on him, it would be a great disaster. He might not be able to overcome this obstacle. She did not have to say much. She only said that he had several identities. This sentence would arouse Sun Mingyue's suspicion. With Sun Mingyue's ability, it would be easy for her to find out about his background. She had not found out until now because she did not expect it. She did not expect it because he had been trying his best to hold her gaze and not let her think in that direction. No matter what, Zhao Dai's character and appearance could not be linked to his original identity. They were two completely different people. As he was thinking about this, his expression suddenly changed. He saw an old woman slowly walking towards Gale Branch with a basket in her hand. She was trembling as she walked towards the main entrance. There were two huge stone lions placed at the main entrance of Gale Branch. Two energetic young men with sharp and threatening eyes stood on both sides of the stone lions. Their eyes were like lightning. They were innate masters. Although they were not perfected, they were not far from it. It was rare to see them at their age. After all, people like him, Fa Yuan, and Lu Yurong were rare. Otherwise, they would not have been so famous. A skinny young man stepped forward and blocked the old woman. "Madam, this is Gale Branch. Unrelated people are not allowed to enter. I'm looking for someone." The old woman was clean and neat. It could be seen that she was a beauty when she was young. Her facial features were good, but her skin was loose and wrinkled. Even so, she did not look ugly. She had a unique temperament. "Who is it?" The other chubby young man chuckled and asked. "Let me see if I know him." "Zhao Dai," the old woman said. "Zhao? Branch leader Zhao?" The two young men were stunned. The old woman nodded. "It's this young man." The two young men asked carefully, "Are you branch leader Zhao's?" "Oh, I'm from his hometown." The old woman sighed and shook her head. "I didn't expect this young man to be so successful even though he has no parents. I'm here to take a look." The two of them were in a difficult position. If they did not let her in, it would be against the rules. After all, she was from the branch leader's hometown. She might even be a relative. If they let her in, it would be against the rules. After all, she did not have any proof. What if she was a bad person? The two of them looked at the old woman carefully. They could tell that the old woman did not know martial arts. Moreover, she was trembling. She did not look like a threat. All right. You can go in and take a look," the skinny young man said softly. "But the branch leader is busy. He might not be here." "He's not here." The old woman frowned. She hesitated and did not want to go in. At that moment, Ko Cheong strode over and was about to enter the door. The two young guards bowed respectfully and told him about the old woman. Ko Cheong looked at the old woman and frowned. If he said there was something wrong, he could not sense anything. If he said there was nothing wrong, he felt that it was strange and inappropriate. There was something wrong, but it seemed like the old woman felt that there was nothing wrong. How about this? Ko Cheong smiled. The branch leader is not here. If he comes back, I'll ask him to look for you. He decided to trust his instincts and not let the old woman enter the branch. Chapter 12:35. Sigh, forget it then. I won't go in if you don't want to. The old woman sighed. I don't have anything to do. I just heard that Day has made a name for himself, so I wanted to come and see. The two young guards looked at Ko Cheong and felt that the deputy leader was being too unreasonable. This old woman wanted to see the leader, but he still wanted to stop her. His heart was too cold. Plus, this old woman was from the leader's hometown, so they were very close. Wasn't the deputy leader afraid that the leader would punish him if he found out? However, they were just two soldiers and had no right to question the deputy leader's decision. They could only obey, and unwillingly stood in front of the old woman. They sighed. Old lady, you can come another day. All right, another day is fine. The old woman nodded. As she spoke, she turned around and slowly walked out. Looking at her lonely back, the two guards felt even more uncomfortable. They felt as if they had done something unpardonably evil. They looked at Ko Cheong again. Ko Cheong frowned and stared at the old woman's back. He shook his head. Let's stay alert and be careful. Yes. The two nodded. Ko Cheong slowly walked inside. At that moment, a green shadow suddenly appeared in front of him and blocked his way. It was the old woman from before. The old woman was still trembling as if she could be blown away by the wind. Her eyes were cloudy. It was hard to imagine that such a fast movement technique was from her. Ko Cheong knew that he was right. There was something wrong with this old woman. The old woman stared at him with her cloudy eyes without blinking. Ko Cheong felt like these two eyes were trying to see through him. It was indescribably uncomfortable. His hair stood on end as he felt a great threat. He had the urge to run. Deputy leader. The two guards were about to step forward. Ko Cheong suddenly raised his hand and signaled them not to come over. He said in a low voice, "You two leave." The two were startled, not understanding what he meant. "Go find the leader," Ko Cheong said. Yes. The two of them understood. They glanced at the old woman and hurriedly ran out. The deputy division leader was indeed worthy of being the deputy division leader. His eyesight was not something they could compare with. This old woman in front of them was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. She obviously had an unfathomable cultivation, yet she still said that she was from the division leader's hometown. It must be a lie. She lied to them, but in fact, she was looking for trouble with the division leader. When they thought of this, they were both angry and helpless. With their innate realm cultivation, they were already considered experts outside, but in Gale Branch, they were the weakest and couldn't help at all. Even if they worked as hard as they could, they would not be able to catch up to the others. Fortunately, their cultivation speed in Gale Branch was 3 to 4 times faster than before. At this rate, it was not impossible for them to become grandmasters before the age of 30. It was said that there was a way to enter the surpassing state and become a grandmaster in Gale Branch. This was also the reason why Gale Branch was so attractive and sought after. Because of the Holy Church of Light, no one doubted this. Seeing them disappear, Ko Cheong heaved a sigh of relief. Their martial arts were ordinary now, but they were all potential. If they were trained well, they would all become grandmasters. They were very important to Gale Branch, and it would be a great loss for them to die prematurely. He looked at the old woman's murky eyes and suppressed the urge to turn and run. He asked coldly, "Who are you, and what do you want?" "Zhao Dai is your branch leader?" The old woman asked slowly. Ko Cheong said, Yes, our branch leader is Zhao Dave. That's good. A smile appeared on the old woman's face. With a flash, she appeared behind Ko Cheong. Her movements were unbelievably fast. Ko Cheong sensed something was wrong. He was alarmed when a small right hand was already on his back. His heart was as cold as ice. He knew that he was finished. Bang! Like a spring thunder, he felt a strong push from his back. It was as if he was swept up by a huge wave. He somersaulted twice in the air and turned his head to look. Chu Li had already appeared and caught the old woman's palm. The old woman was Ding Ruijie in disguise. Chu Li's Heavenly King palm and her 9 kills palm collided, but they were evenly matched. Both of them took a step back, but the impact of their palms was so strong that Ko Cheong was pushed far away. You're finally here, Ding Ruijie said. Go and accompany Xiao Guo. As soon as she finished speaking, she attacked again. Chu Li suddenly took a step back. When he was 5 steps away, he attacked with his palm. The surrounding spiritual energy from heaven and earth surged and instantly expanded his palm energy. At the same time, he attacked with his other palm and combined it with his palm energy, forming a fist. The size of the fist energy could not be seen by others, but he could see it clearly with the omniscient mirror. He could see the process of the sudden acceleration and hit Ding Ruijie's right palm. Bang! When the palm energy collided, there was another thunderous explosion. Ko Cheong hurriedly retreated and hid behind a stone lion. He could feel the stone lion shake, as if it was about to be pushed out of position. He was shocked and thought to himself, what a strong palm energy. I really can't take it head-on. The branch leader's cultivation level is really high. Chu Li smiled. He was finally not afraid of Ding Ruijie anymore. The power of the Heavenly King palm was beyond imagination, and he was full of confidence. What palm technique is that? Ding Ruijie asked. Chu Li said, take a guess. He did not want others to know that it was the Heavenly King palm. Moreover, none of the people who had experienced the Heavenly King palm were still alive. If he did not say it, others would not know that he was using the Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijie said, Zhao Dave? Interesting. Chu Li turned his head and said, Ko Cheong, go back first. Don't let anyone out. Yes. Ko Cheong quickly responded and jumped over the wall into the branch. Chu Li turned to look at Ding Ruijie. What do you want? Actually, I don't have to personally take revenge, Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li frowned and remained silent. Ding Ruijie said, if Sun Mingyue knew your real identity, Chu Li smiled. What real identity? Chu Li's heart sank. In the end, she had guessed it. However, he had to be wary of how much she had guessed and whether she was trying to trick him. You're the first person to be able to sneak into the Holy Church of Light. Ding Ruijie looked at him with a faint smile. Do you think I'm tricking you? Chu Li shook his head. I don't understand what you're talking about. Sneak into the Holy Church of Light? You're not from the Li dynasty, are you? Ding Ruijie seemed to enjoy watching him like a cat toying with a mouse. She wanted to torture him first. Chu Li frowned. I'm an orphan. No one knows where I'm from. Why? Are you interested in where I'm from? I don't need to know that to avenge Liang Yinge, do I? Life and death are fated. Xiao Ji's life is like that. Although I wanted to change it, I couldn't do it. It can't be helped. Who can resist the heavens? Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li said, that's good. It's good that you're able to accept it. We don't have to fight to the death. Xiao Ji's life is his business. Whether I avenge him or not is my business. Ding Ruijie said, my life is boring. It's good to have something to do. Chapter 1236. Chu Li smiled. The world is so beautiful, but you've enjoyed too much. You're saying that life is meaningless. Is it because you're not smart enough? Ding Ruijie said, I now know that the most interesting thing is revenge. Chu Li said, if that's the case, come at me. I might not be able to kill you, Ding Ruijie said. Her cultivation level was higher than Chu Li's, but her martial arts skills were not up to par. The 9 kills palm was supposed to restrain him, but now that he had cultivated such a powerful palm technique, she could no longer restrain him. In that case, she would have to perish together with him. She was not afraid of perishing together with him. If she died, she would go to the Outland to meet that guy. However, if she died without killing Zhao Dave, she would be too ashamed to face him. Chu Li asked, "What do you want then?" "I want to talk to Sun Mingyue," Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li frowned. "The saint? The saint is at the Great Light Peak, not everyone can meet her." "As long as I spread the word, Sun Mingyue will definitely come to see me," Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li scoffed. "Why do you want to meet the saint?" He knew that Ding Ruijie was right. She was well versed in divination, and based on this, Sun Mingyue would not reject her. He wanted to know what she wanted to talk about. Ding Ruijie said, "Let's talk about your identity." "What are you trying to say?" Chu Li said impatiently. "What identity? I have a clean background. I've done a thorough investigation before I joined the church. You can't just say whatever you want." Ding Ruijie shook her head. "No matter how thorough their investigation is, do they know that you're originally from the East?" "The East. You're from the Ji dynasty, right?" "I'm from the Fu dynasty," Chu Li said impatiently. "You're the successor of divination. Don't talk nonsense and ruin the reputation of the Prophecy Pavilion, all right?" "You're from the Ji dynasty," Ding Ruijie said. "I believe that Sun Mingyue will investigate once I tell her." Chu Li said, "The saint might not believe your tricks." "Let's try then," Ding Ruijie said. "I know how powerful Sun Mingyue is. If she really wants to investigate, do you still think you can survive? However, to be able to become a branch leader, you are indeed an outstanding person. It is not an injustice for little Go to die in your hands." "Fine, fine. You want to kill me with a borrowed knife," Chu Li said calmly. "Bring it on then. I'd like to see if the saint believes you or me." "Then let's wait and see," Ding Ruijie said. A green shadow flashed, and she appeared 100 meters away from Chu Li. This godlike light body technique made Chu Li very wary, as it was a piece of cake for her to kill any of his subordinates. Such a dangerous enemy must be eliminated. However, he did not chase after her directly. He wanted to see what she wanted to do. It was not difficult to follow her. He was worried that she would turn around and teach the people of Gale Branch a lesson. She had charged into the Gale Branch. Clearly, not only did she want to kill him, she wanted to torture him before killing him. After a while, he saw that Ding Ruijie had already left. In the blink of an eye, she was already 10 miles away, so he instantly disappeared. He followed her closely, wanting to see where she was going. He was extremely envious of Ding Ruijie's light body technique. Most of the time, he could not expose his god's limbs. If he had her light body technique now, he would be much stronger when fighting an enemy. Ding Ruijie's body was like a shadow as she drifted forward. His heart sank as he realized that Ding Ruijie was heading toward the Great Light Peak. It was obvious that Ding Ruijie knew about the Great Light Peak. It seemed like she was really going to find Sun Mingyue and expose his identity. He did not know how much Ding Ruijie had divined, whether she knew everything about his identity, or whether she only knew that he was from the Ji dynasty. He hoped that Ding Ruijie would only be able to tell that he was from the Ji dynasty, but not everything about him. It was obvious that heavenly prophecy was not omnipotent and could not be so detailed. If she had really divined everything about him, she should not have shown such a calm expression. She should have been shocked. Ding Ruijie's mind was as calm as still water. Most things in the world had already been settled, except for this. As long as she told Sun Mingyue about this, she could borrow her hands to kill Zhao Dave. Then, there would be no reason for her to stay in this world anymore. Back then, she did not follow her senior brother because of Xiao Guo. She needed to take good care of Xiao Gu and pass on her bloodline. Now that Xiao Gu had passed away, she had fulfilled her duty and should go to the Outland to meet her senior brother. Seeing Liang Ying's death, she was filled with pain and hatred. She wanted to destroy the world, but this anger quickly dissipated and gradually calmed down. Now, she no longer had that monstrous hatred. There was only one thought in her mind, which was to fulfill her duty and not to take revenge. Chu Li followed closely behind her while thinking of a way to deal with it. Under such circumstances, if he did not kill her, everything would be destroyed if he was exposed. Not only would all his previous efforts be wasted, but more importantly, he would be hunted by the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light's strength was beyond imagination, and they had many masters. If they really wanted to kill him, would he be able to withstand it? Even if he could, what about the people around him? However, why did she directly go to the Great Light Peak? Why did she not kill the people around him first and make him suffer first? After hesitating for a while, he finally decided to be safe. Regardless of whether she was testing him or not, he had to stop her first. When he thought about this, he suddenly appeared in front of Ding Ruijie and blocked her way. Ding Ruijie stopped and looked at him with a faint smile. Chu Li took a deep breath and said coldly, "What do you know?" Ding Ruijie said, "You're from the Ji dynasty, but you're a spy in the Holy Church of Light. It's obvious what your identity is. Are you a secret guardian from the Ji dynasty's secret guardians hall?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded slowly. Ding Ruijie said, "Looks like the Ji dynasty can't be underestimated. Someone like you actually managed to sneak into the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light is known to be the hardest to sneak into because Sun Mingyue has the ability to read minds. How did you manage to hide from her?" "I was just lucky," Chu Li said. "I'm very curious about this. If you can tell me the truth, I might be able to let you off the hook," Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li laughed and shook his head. "Let me off the hook," Ding Ruijie said. "Letting you off the hook doesn't mean sparing you, it means sparing your subordinates. Although you're from the Ji dynasty, you still have feelings for your subordinate. You can't bear for them to die, right?" Chu Li frowned and his gaze became sharper. "I can't kill you. I'll have to use Sun Mingyue's hand, but you can't kill me either." Ding Ruijie said, "So, you can either tell me the truth or I'm too lazy to learn it. I'm just satisfying my curiosity. There aren't many interesting things in this world." "All right," Chu Li said. "Actually, I have a question." "Speak," Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li asked, "How far have you calculated?" "You're from the Ji dynasty," Ding Ruijie said. "That's all." "Yes, that's enough," Ding Ruijie said. Chapter 1237. Do you look down on heavenly prophecy? Ding Ruijie's face darkened. Chu Li shook his head. "Fate is unpredictable. Who can predict it?" "I only know a little about heavenly prophecy," Ding Ruijie said coldly. "Even so, predicting fate is enough." Chu Li smiled. "Then, can you predict my fate?" "I can't." Ding Ruijie scoffed. This Zhao Dai was very strange. His body was shrouded in a layer of fog, which was different from the nobles of the emperor. In short, predicting his fate with heavenly prophecy would result in a huge backlash, and the prediction would be inaccurate. Can the Pavilion of Prophecy do that? "I'm afraid not," Ding Ruijie said. The disciples of the Pavilion of Prophecy were the manipulators of fate. They did not travel the world for grudges but to observe, respect, predict, and even create fate. If she was manipulated by fate, it would be a failure as a disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy. She was a failure who could not change her fate. She was a disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy, but her life was filled with misfortune. She lost her loved ones one by one, yet she could not do anything about it. However, her failure was understandable when it came to Zhao Dai. Even the most elite disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy would end up the same. Ding Ruijie said, All right, you can tell me how you managed to fool Sun Mingyue. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Ding Ruijie's face darkened. She stared at him coldly. All right, just you wait. With a flash, she appeared 100 feet away. With another flash, she appeared 200 feet away. Her movements were as illusory as a shadow. Chu Li appeared behind her in the next moment and pressed his palm down. The Heavenly King palm was unusually violent. Ding Ruijie did not expect him to be so precise. She hastily blocked the attack and was instantly sent flying 10 meters away. Chu Li swung his arms and 2 streams of light caught up to her. Ding Ruijie swung her palms to meet the light blades. This time, the light blades were even more powerful. As soon as she attacked, the blades hit her chest but were blocked by her treasured clothing. She was sent flying again. Chu Li followed closely behind. He only had one chance to kill her. If he let her go, it would be difficult for him to kill her with her heavenly prophecy. Moo! Chu Li suddenly shouted and used the musical assassination technique. Then, he appeared behind her and unleashed a Heavenly King palm. This palm strike was different from the previous one. The 2 palm strikes, one left and one right, first fused together, then absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The palm force condensed in the center of the palm, and like a palm thunder, it pressed into Ding Ruijie's back. She spat out a mouthful of blood. This Heavenly King palm was extremely ferocious and overbearing. After it entered her body, it didn't allow her to block it and directly shattered her internal organs. Even if she had inner force protecting her body, it was useless as it was forcefully shattered. Her vitality was strong. Even though her internal organs were shattered, she did not die. After spitting out this mouthful of blood, she suddenly became much more energetic. Her eyes were burning and her whole body was surrounded by a monstrous force. Like a green light, she instantly shot towards Chu Li. Bam! Their palm energies collided. Chu Li did not expect her to be so fast. He could not use his full strength in such a hurry and could only retreat. However, this force was exceptionally strange. There were several types of changes mixed together. Even if he used the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture to dispel it, it was still a little strenuous. By the time he completely dispelled this strange force, she had already disappeared. Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to observe 10 miles away. Just as he was about to follow her, he realized that she had suddenly disappeared from his mind. Therefore, he shrank to 10 miles away. Although the omniscient mirror could observe 10 miles away, he usually paid attention to 10 miles away. Since he still had energy left, his vision was clearer and more comfortable. He immediately shrank to 10 miles away, but he still could not see her. 5 miles for miles until 1 mile away, he still could not see Ding Ruijie. Could she really have disappeared? Or did she also have a strange skill similar to God's limbs? He thought about it. The disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion were mysterious and powerful. No one could figure out how powerful they were. He was afraid that Ding Ruijie also had a strange skill that she had not used. Liang Yinga liked to hide his trump card. He had one trump card after another. He was afraid that he had learned it from Ding Ruijie. He frowned and carefully sensed the existence of his Heavenly King palm energy. However, he found that it had been cut off. It was as if Ding Ruijie had died and the Heavenly King palm energy had disappeared. Of course, there was also a possibility that Ding Ruijie had dispelled the palm energy. For now, it seemed that Ding Ruijie had dispelled the palm energy. His heart kept sinking as he completely lost his sense of Ding Ruijie. There was no longer any trace of her existence between heaven and earth. It was as if she had completely disappeared and left this world. He stood in the same place and frowned. She must have used a secret skill to escape. If he could not kill her, there would be endless trouble. She would definitely find Sun Mingyue and tell him his identity. From then on, he would not have a peaceful day. Thinking of this, his murderous intent surged. He must kill her. Even if he could not kill her, he had to shut her up. However, it was unimaginably difficult to do this now. She could predict all kinds of troubles and avoid them in advance. If he wanted to kill her, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. He suddenly felt a little annoyed and thought of a countermeasure. He could not delay it for too long. Otherwise, if she really ran to Sun Mingyue, he would definitely be exposed. Everything in the past would be gone, and many people would be implicated. It was impossible to really find her. Everything on her had disappeared without a trace, and he could not find her even if he wanted to. He paced with his hands behind his back. The more anxious he became, the calmer his heart became. He was eager to find a countermeasure. After walking back and forth a few times, he suddenly stopped and closed his eyes. He began to sense. Suddenly, he disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was already in a ravine. The ravine was located deep in the mountains and was surrounded by lush trees. Even in this winter, the trees were still green. The inside of the ravine was as warm as spring. It was really a good place to live in seclusion. He slowly stepped into the ravine and walked inside step by step. He arrived outside a wooden house and looked around. Seeing that there was no movement around, he opened the door and stepped in. The house was empty. There was almost nothing in it. It made people wonder if it was a place for people to live. He placed 2 flying blades on the table. They were as bright as new and gave off a chilly aura. It seemed that they had the ability to suppress evil and ward off evil spirit. Chu felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with these 2 flying blades. It was as if he had seen someone he had known for a long time. It was the light blade that he had shot out. It was shockingly powerful. He did not expect to see it here. He stepped forward and reached out his hand. Just as he was about to take the blade, he suddenly stopped and looked around. In the end, he did not find anything suspicious. However, he could not help but feel that something was strange. It was as if someone had deliberately led him here. When he thought of this, his heart trembled slightly. This place was either Liang Ying's or left for her master's junior. In short, there was nothing good here. He wanted to see how lucky he was and whether Ding Ruijie could escape. Chapter 1238. He squinted his eyes and used the omniscient mirror to observe his surroundings. He found that the small valley was not big, but the terrain was excellent. His expression changed slightly and he was about to use God's limbs to leave. His surroundings suddenly changed and the omniscient mirror lost all senses. The world turned dark and he did not know where he was. There was only darkness. He could not use God's limbs anymore. He did not know where he was and could not find the place he wanted to go in the void. Once he used it, he would be trapped in the infinite void, unable to find this world or even return to this place. He quickly retracted the omniscient mirror and observed himself. His body shone brightly and the void in his mind was still vast and endless. A Buddha and a demon stood with their backs facing each other, chanting. Lotuses of different colors floated in the sky and finally returned to the Buddha and demon bodies to strengthen their Dharmakaya. In the omniscient mirror, his inner energy was like a stream under the moonlight. The spiritual energy around him was like the moonlight, brightening his body and illuminating his surroundings so that he would not get lost. He withdrew from the omniscient mirror and looked around. He was in a vast sea of clouds and could not see his surroundings. He could not see up or down, which made him feel an inexplicable sense of despair. Chu furrowed his brows as he pondered. He recalled what the omniscient mirror had observed before the formation was activated, and combined it with the surrounding terrain. He deduced that this was a 5 ultimate universe formation. The 5 ultimate elements were the 5 sources of absolute benefit. With their 5 senses sealed, they would not be able to use them, and they would become a cripple who could not hear, smell, taste, or feel. Other than sealing his senses, there were also the 5 ultimate elements of fire, wind, snow, thunder, and lightning. Any movement would cause wind and rain and lightning to strike. Each move would be fatal, leaving no way out. He had a deep understanding of the Tao of array formations. By chance, he had studied this Qiankuan 5-terminal formation. As long as it was a formation, no matter how deadly it was, there must be a way out. He wanted to break out, but it was impossible with his martial arts and divine powers. The only way was to find this way out. The formation was a world of its own. All his divine powers and martial arts could not resist the power of the formation. He was like a frog under an elephant's feet. How could he jump? It was useless. He had to find the only way out. "Senior Ding, please show yourself," Chuli said loudly. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that this was Ding Ruijie's doing. Initially, he thought that he could use his flying dagger to sense Liang Ying's original residence. As long as he found Liang Ying's grave, he could rely on Ding Ruijie's heavenly prophecy art to sense Liang Ying's grave and lead her back. Unexpectedly, Ding Ruijie was even smarter. She used the flying daggers as bait and set up the 5-terminal universe formation here. The surroundings were empty and no sound came out. Chuli knew that Ding Ruijie was watching from the side. She had to do it herself. "Does Senior Ding really want to kill me?" Chuli asked. "Don't you want to know my secret?" The surroundings were still empty, without a single sound. Ding Ruijie clearly wanted him to despair and break down. Once she collapsed, her willpower would vanish. She would then say whatever she wanted to ask, and it would be even more painful. She would definitely feel great if she killed him. Chuli continued, "This is the 5 ultimate universe formation, right?" He needed to give Ding Ruijie enough pressure. No matter how smart a person was, they would do stupid things under great pressure. This was his chance. Ding Ruijie stood motionlessly at the side. He needed some time to break the array. During this period of time, Ding Ruijie could do many things. It would not be difficult for her to kill everyone in Gale Branch. It would also be troublesome for her to look for Sun Mingyue. Chuli said, "The 5 ultimate universe formation is indeed powerful, but it's not without weaknesses." There was still no movement in the surroundings. Ding Ruijie had enough patience. Chuli smiled. "It's very easy to break the 5 ultimate universe formation." Ding Ruijie still did not say anything. Chuli said, "I can break this array in 15 minutes. Do you believe me, Senior Ding?" Ding Ruijie finally could not help but sneer. This 5 ultimate universe formation was the result of her painstaking efforts to find this wonderful place. After 20 years of modification, it was finally formed into a perfect array. Once trapped in the array, even an enlightened master would have to spend a lot of effort to break it, let alone a grandmaster. Chuli shook his head. "In my opinion, Senior Ding has made a mistake." Ding Ruijie calmed down and remained unmoved. Chuli said, "Senior Ding has planted 2 more trees on the Sun position. This way, the wood energy is too strong, which has affected the balance of the 5 ultimate universe formation. Its power has been greatly reduced, and it has even become a fatal weakness. I only need to bombard it with my inner energy, and it will be easy to break." Ding Ruijie was standing at the peak of a mountain, looking down at Chuli in the valley. Her green robe fluttered in the wind, and her face that had regained its smoothness showed a solemn expression. Chuli's words hit the nail on the head. Chuli continued, "It seems that Senior Ding didn't notice that these 2 trees are not ordinary trees. They are full of vitality, and the wood energy is much more abundant than ordinary trees. In the end, it has become a weakness. Senior Ding is a sentimental person." Chuli shook his head and smiled. "You've developed feelings for these 2 trees, and you can't bear to destroy one of them. Every day you water them, trim them, and watch them grow little by little. People say that plants are heartless, but they don't know how they can be heartless. Senior Ding practices divination, so your senses are sharp. You can faintly feel their feelings, right?" "Shut up!" Ding Ruijie could not help but shout. She was shocked. She did not expect Chu Li to say something like that. How could plants be heartless? As soon as he said this, his knowledge was above Xiao Ji's. Chu Li sighed. If Senior Ding doesn't let me go, then I can only offend you and destroy these 2 trees. Humph! Ding Ruijie sneered. In the formation, heaven and earth were one and everything was one. As long as the formation was not broken, not a single plant could be destroyed. This Xiao Dai was really arrogant. Chu Li said, "How about we make a bet?" "What?" Ding Ruijie scoffed. Chu Li had always liked to solve the biggest problem with the smallest price. If it was in his past life, it would certainly not be suitable. However, people in this era took oaths and bets very seriously, so they would not go back on their word. If I can break this formation, I'll write off all my grudges with Liang'inga. In your dreams. Hee. Then Senior Ding wants to fight to the death with me? It's good that you understand. Sigh. Forget it. Chu Li sighed. The 5 ultimate formation cut off all senses. She could hear each other's words, which meant that her position was on the only way out. Only there could she talk to the people in the formation and hear each other's voices. Through the topography imprinted in his mind by the omniscient mirror, he knew where the formation was activated. As such, he could conclude that the peak of the mountain was where the life door of the formation was located, and Ding Ruijie's position was his locator. The sound she made was the channel that he could use. I wonder how Senior Ding wants to deal with my subordinates? Kill them all. Ding Ruijie said faintly, "You won't be lonely. Isn't it better to let them accompany you down there?" Chapter 1239. Chu Li used her voice to locate her location and kept correcting the location in his mind. He overlapped with reality so that he did not need to see or feel and could directly rush over. There could not be any difference between the 2 or else one wrong step would lead to a series of wrong steps. He continued, "Senior Ding, why do you have to do this? They're innocent. Aren't you afraid of harming the heavens?" "I'll leave this world after I kill them," Ding Ruijie said. "You don't have to plead for mercy. Their fates are already sealed." Chu Li's killing intent surged. "Then I have no choice but to offend you." He disappeared in a flash and rushed to the position he had set in his mind. He took a step forward and the scenery in front of him changed. The strong wind howled and the strong wind was like knives cutting his body. He had the treasured clothing and inner energy to protect his body, or else he would have been frozen. He had already closed his eyes to avoid looking at his surroundings so that his vision would not affect his footstep. However, he knew that it was difficult to do so. A person's senses would be constantly affected by the outside world. They might think that they were walking in a straight line, but they would unknowingly go astray. The 5 ultimate universe formation affected their senses and humans could not resist it. He relied on the omniscient mirror to control his body and Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture to suppress his senses and minimize the influence of the outside world. However, the power of the formation was extremely strong. He could only hold on for a short time, just a few breaths. If he could not reach his goal in a few breaths, it would be 100 times more difficult to break through the formation on his own. The cold wind entered his body, and he was almost frozen. It seemed like the treasured clothing had lost its effect. He took another step forward. The extreme cold instantly turned into extreme heat. The air seemed to have turned into lava. His hair curled up and his body gave off a burning smell. The feeling of being roasted made him feel like he was going to collapse. He wanted to fly away immediately. The omniscient mirror observed his body and noticed that his body was rapidly heating up. His temperature rose rapidly as if he was going to combust. He quickly visualized the cold lake that the spirit crane had brought him to in his mind. He carefully experienced the feeling of diving into the cold lake. Waves of cold air flowed from his mind to his entire body and suppressed the rising temperature of his body. He took another step forward. 1 step was equivalent to 10 steps for others. He strode across the sky like a meteor. He shut his eyes to prevent himself from looking at his surroundings. The appearance was born from the heart, and the heart changed according to the appearance. Even the strongest mind would inevitably be affected by the appearance. Boom! A huge clap of thunder exploded beside his ear. His mind was blank, and his thoughts seemed to have stopped working. Boom! Rumble! Boom! The continuous thunder made him tremble all over. Under the might of heaven, he was so small and insignificant, as if a single thunder could blow him up into pieces at any time. Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture circulated in his mind. In the blink of an eye, the void in his mind reappeared. He regained his clarity and exclaimed inwardly that it was amazing. If not for the protection of Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture, he would have become an idiot who would never wake up again. This 5 ultimate Qiankuan formation indeed lived up to its name. Rumble, 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 rumble. Each thunderclap was more powerful than the one before, and it was as if there was only the sound of thunder in the world. It was as if he was in a lightning prison, and a destructive aura enveloped his surroundings. He could be turned into ashes at any moment. He gritted his teeth and continued to rush forward. Crack! A voice that made his scalp tingle suddenly rang out. Even with his eyes closed, he could still feel the light shining brightly. The omniscient mirror had been curled up in his body to control his movements, and he did not observe the outside world. Even so, he knew that a bolt of lightning had struck him. He was very familiar with this feeling, as he had experienced it many times when he used the eclipse purloined skill. When the power of thunder entered his body, all inner energy was not worth mentioning in front of it. Thunder was the cardinal of heaven and earth, and it was above all other forces. He instantly froze and could not move. All his inner energy was desperately circulating, and several heart techniques were circulating along their own routes. At this critical moment of life and death, his ability to multitask was displayed to the fullest. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, Cloud Slashing Power, Heavenly Demonic Power, Divine Light Technique, and many other martial arts were dispelling the power of thunder. All of these techniques were amazing, and soon, a trace of the power of thunder was dissolved, and his body moved. He disregarded his heavy injuries and took a step forward with all his might. After 1 step, he arrived at a world of ice and snow. The cold suddenly entered his body, and while he was weak, it directly entered his organs. The blood flow in his organs slowed down, and his thoughts seemed to slow down as well. He gritted his teeth and desperately urged his inner energy to circulate to dispel the cold. Before he could dispel this wave of cold, another wave of cold had arrived. The 2 waves of cold overlapped, and their power was even stronger. His thoughts seemed to be slower, and the circulation of his inner energy seemed to be slower as well. Chu Li knew that if this went on, he would soon freeze to death. He visualized the scorching sun in his mind, and a sun emitted thousands of golden rays as it rose from the void and shone on his body. Suddenly, his body felt warm, and the cold in his organs was dispelled. His blood flow gradually became stronger. He took advantage of the fact that he could move and hurriedly took another step forward. The scorching heat that assaulted his face immediately enveloped him. It was as if his entire body was about to split open. There was no buffer between the extreme cold and the scorching heat. His originally shrunken body suddenly expanded, and the change was too fast. Under the cold contraction and the heat expansion, cracks seemed to appear on his body. He did not dare to move violently, and could only move gently for fear of breaking himself. He gritted his teeth and took 2 more steps, and he would reach the life gate. Then, when he took another step, he encountered the extreme cold again. The cracks that were originally split open seemed to be bigger, and his body almost fell apart. Another step, and it turned into scorching heat again. He felt that he could not take it anymore. From the extreme cold to the scorching heat, then to the extreme evil, and then to the scorching heat again. The cold and heat alternated so violently that even iron and stone could not withstand it. Not to mention his body of flesh and blood, he was about to collapse. His flesh and blood would be smashed to the ground, and he would be reduced to ashes. However, this feeling did not affect his progress. Instead, he became more determined. Unmoved, he continued to take another step forward. Suddenly, his vision opened up, and a 9 tribulations palm energy surged toward him. Chuli took this palm attack head-on, and stood steadily in the same place. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He was already injured by the formation, and now that he was hit by Ding Ruijie's palm attack that gathered all her inner energy, his injuries became more serious. However, no matter how serious his injuries were, he could not retreat. Otherwise, if he fell into the formation again, it would be difficult for him to survive. After witnessing the power of the 5 Ultimate Universe formation, he realized that he had still underestimated this formation. "Moo!" he suddenly shouted, and the musical assassination technique appeared again. Ding Ruijie was shocked. In a flash, he appeared behind her, and both of his palms struck at the same time. He had gathered all the inner energy in his body to perform a Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijie was stunned. She hurriedly faced this Heavenly King palm, and instantly fell into the formation. Chuli finally breathed a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on his face. Another trickle of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Even though Ding Ruijie was the person who set up the formation, it would take her some effort to get out after falling into the formation. He looked around. All his senses returned to his body. He could see the entire formation clearly, and he quickly analyzed it. He wanted to take over this 5 Ultimate Universe formation and trap Ding Ruijie in the formation so that she would not come out and harm people again. Chapter 1240. The 5 Ultimate Universe formation was extremely complicated. Although he had studied it before, it was his first time seeing it. His mind raced as he quickly analyzed it and turned it into his own formation. A moment later, Ding Ruijie arrived with a surging palm energy. Chuli gritted his teeth and used the Heavenly King palm. Bang! Ding Ruijie was sent flying again and fell into the formation. Chuli knew that he could not delay any longer. Otherwise, Ding Ruijie could break out again. She was the one who set up the formation and naturally knew how to get out. The only way to trap her was to change the formation, but it was not easy to change it. Now that the formation was operating on its own and the 5 elements were connected, it did not need or repel external forces. It was difficult for him to change it by force. He needed a profound formation cultivation to do so. It was not easy for him to change the operation of the formation. Woo! Ding Ruijie's palm energy came again. Chuli used the Heavenly King palm again. The Heavenly King palm energy was strange and overbearing. Even if it could not hurt Ding Ruijie, it could still send her flying into the formation. Chuli endured it, but his injuries kept worsening. He did not care. The spiritual energy from heaven and earth kept repairing his spiritual energy. As long as he successfully changed the formation, he would be able to kill Ding Ruijie once and for all. Otherwise, he would not be able to sleep and eat in peace. When he thought about the Holy Church of Light hunting him and Ding Ruijie killing Ko Cheong and the others, he wanted to kill her. He could not let her live. His eyes suddenly lit up. He took out 2 jade pendants and stood at the top of the mountain to stare at the valley below. Finally, he gritted his teeth and threw the 2 jade pendants that were glowing with a warm luster to the north and south. Suddenly, there was a loud boom. The surrounding sky seemed to distort like ripples in a lake. Chuli let out a long sigh of relief. His pale face had a tinge of red. This time, it was extremely exhausting. He had used almost all of his intelligence to find the 2 formation cores and change the 5 ultimate Qian Kuan formation into the Qian Kuan extermination formation. Once the formation was completed, there was almost no life in the formation. Boom! There was an explosion and a bolt of lightning struck at Ding Ruijie. Ding Ruijie barely moved 3 feet to avoid it. The ground was scorched. Although Ding Ruijie avoided it, she was shocked. Chu Li smiled. Now, it was Ding Ruijie's turn to have a taste of what he had experienced earlier. She wanted to experience the power of the formation. He might be able to dodge it, but she might not. His smile suddenly froze. Ding Ruijie's figure suddenly swayed and disappeared from the omniscient mirror. Chu Li was stunned. Ding Ruijie had used this technique to escape earlier. He could clearly see Ding Ruijie, but the omniscient mirror could not sense her. It was as if she had disappeared from the world. He didn't need to think too much to know that it was a secret technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secret. The lightning in the sky slowly dissipated. Ding Ruijie's face was as pale as a sheet. Her body was getting thinner and weaker, as if she could be blown away by a gust of wind. She walked slowly and gracefully across the ravine, as if she was walking on flat ground. From the outside of the ravine, she walked into the small house in the ravine and disappeared from Chu Li's sight. The 5 ultimate universe formation that Chu Li had put in so much effort to modify suddenly became ineffective. It did not seem to have noticed her at all. Chu Li's face darkened. The Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries indeed lived up to its name. With this technique, they could avoid all formations. Wouldn't those protective formations be useless against them? He knew that such a strange technique had to come at a great cost, but it didn't matter to Ding Ruijie. Chu Li's figure flashed and entered the formation. At this time, he had already seen through the formation. He walked in the formation as if he was walking on flat ground. 3 to the left and 4 to the right. He followed a special footwork and walked forward until he reached the small house in the ravine. Ding Ruijie walked out of the small house and stood at the door looking at him coldly. "Zhao Dai, I've underestimated you," Chu Li said. "What kind of strange technique did Senior Ding use just now?" "It's useless even if you know," Ding Ruijie said lightly. "The secret technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries?" Chu Li said. Ding Ruijie said lightly, "The heaven-deceiving technique." Chu Li smiled. "It must have cost a lot? Man can be deceived, but not God." Ding Ruijie said, "Do you want to learn it?" Chu Li said, "I'll pass on the strange technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries." He kept a respectful distance from the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. He felt that this group of people were abnormal. They fought with God all day long. It was simply suicidal. How could fate be controlled and used so easily? It was no different from asking a tiger for its skin. Ding Ruijie said lightly, "You can't kill me." Chu Li suddenly threw 2 flying blades. The light flashed and appeared in front of her. Ding Ruijie did not dodge and attacked with her palm. Chu Li countered with the Heavenly King palm. Bam! Chu Li flew out and dissipated the palm energy. This time, he did not have to take it head-on. Ding Ruijie was sent flying by the Heavenly King palm. At the same time, she was hit by 2 blades. However, she was wearing treasured clothing, so the flying blades could not hurt her. Chu Li felt helpless. If he did not have external help, it was almost impossible to kill Ding Ruijie. Her secret technique was impossible to guard against. She could escape at any time, but he could not let her escape. Ding Ruijie fluttered into the formation. Suddenly, that strange feeling appeared again. Chu Li let out a smile. He concluded that the heaven-deceiving technique would cause him endless trouble. He wanted to force her to keep using it. He wanted to see how long she could use it and whether she would be hurt by the heaven-deceiving technique. He chased after Ding Ruijie like a shadow and attacked her with Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijie dodged and attacked, but she could not get rid of Chu Li. She fluttered out of the formation. Chu Li desperately used his light body technique to block her way. Unfortunately, Ding Ruijie's light body technique was far better than his. In the end, she escaped from the 5 ultimate universe formation and entered a mountain. She fought as she chased after him. Unknowingly, the sky darkened. As dusk rose, the two of them were still fighting. Boom! Suddenly, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Ding Ruijie sped up and avoided the lightning. Chu Li was overjoyed. He knew that the heaven-deceiving technique had backfired. Ding Ruijie suddenly turned around and walked towards Chu Li, giving him a fright. She was going to drag him down with her to hell with her. He became the one running away and ran toward the valley. Boom! Another bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Ding Ruijie disappeared and appeared behind Chu Li in the next moment. She was so fast that Chu Li could not dodge. Crack! Chu Li felt numb when he heard this sound. He felt his body stiffen and he lost control. This familiar feeling made him understand that he was struck by lightning again. He used all his skills to dispel the lightning. The next moment, he appeared in front of Ding Ruijie in a flash. He pressed his palm on her chest and spat out all the inner energy in his body. Bang! Ding Ruijie was sent flying as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Li followed closely behind and caught up with her again. Another palm energy fell. Stop! With a shout, a middle-aged man in white clothes suddenly appeared in front of him and met the palm. Bang! Chu Li felt his palm hit a hard rock. The palm energy rebounded and he was sent flying. He turned in the air and swung both his hands. Tsk tisk. 2 bolts of lightning shot toward Ding Ruijie's throat and forehead. How dare you! The middle-aged man in white snorted and appeared in front of Ding Ruijie. He waved his sleeve and the 2 flying knives were sent flying. Chapter 1241. He was so close to killing Ding Ruijie, but someone stopped him at the crucial moment. Killing intent erupted from his body like a volcano, and he wished for nothing more than to pounce forward and kill this meddlesome fellow with a single palm strike. But this person's cultivation was deep and not inferior to Ding Ruijie's, and might even be a level higher than Ding Ruijie's, so he might not be able to defeat him. Who are you? Chu Li took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He stared coldly at the middle-aged man in white. The white-clothed man said indifferently, Zhu Hua of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. After saying that, he looked up at the gradually condensing thunderclouds in the sky and turned to look at Ding Ruijie, who was on the verge of collapse. He shook his head regretfully and said in a deep voice, No matter who you are, you can't kill Miss Ding. Goodbye. With that, he tugged at Ding Ruijie's sleeve and fluttered away. Chu Li was enraged. His figure flashed and stood in front of the 2. The thunderclouds in the sky formed and were about to descend. Zhu Huaxian disappeared before Chu Li's eyes and reappeared 100 meters away in the next moment. Like a stream of light, he disappeared into the forest in an instant. Chu Li hurriedly used the omniscient mirror to observe, but he could not find anything. Chu Li felt wronged. Once Ding Ruijie escaped, she would definitely look for Sun Mingyue and he would be finished. He raised his head to look at the thunderclouds that were slowly dispersing. It was obvious that Zhu Hua had used the heaven-deceiving technique as well, which was why he was able to hide Ding Ruijie from his omniscient mirror. However, even if he could not see them, Chu Li could still use his tracking skill to follow them closely. Unfortunately, Zhu Hua's light body technique was powerful. He could cross dozens of feet in one step and leave no trace. Even if Chu Li could follow him, he was far behind. He could not catch up with the heaven-deceiving script, so he could only give up. He stood on top of a mountain and looked at the direction where Ding Ruijie and the others disappeared. His face was gloomy as he thought of a plan. He could not kill Ding Ruijie, so he had to think of another way. Things did not always go his way. At most, he would be hunted by the Holy Church of Light and he would have to hide. It was noon. The Divine Light Basilica was unusually bright. The light from the mountains illuminated the basilica. Sun Mingyue sat behind the table and quickly read through the files. She wore a white gown and a white veil covered her face, revealing only a pair of beautiful eyes. Her gaze was clear and deep, and her white gown could not conceal her graceful figure. She sat there with her back straight, elegant and proud. Du Ying, who was dressed in a green tunic, walked in quietly and curtsied. Saint, I've received news that a disciple from the Prophecy Pavilion is requesting an audience at the foot of the Great Light Peak. The Pavilion of Divination? Sun Mingyue put down the scroll and raised her head to look at her. Du Ying replied softly, Yes, Ding Ruijie. It's her. Sun Mingyue frowned. She got up and walked down the steps. She paced back and forth in front of the table with her hands behind her back, her eyes sparkling. Ding Ruijie was Liang Ying's master, and she was inextricably linked to the Prophecy Pavilion. Up until now, she had not been able to find out what exactly their relationship was, but it was not wrong to say that she was a disciple of the Prophecy Pavilion. Liang Ying had died at the hands of Zhao Dai. Could it be that Ding Ruijie wanted the Holy Church of Light to hand over Zhao Dai? Where's Zhao Dai? She asked in a deep voice. Du Ying replied awkwardly, I don't know. Sun Mingyue's eyebrows were covered with a thin layer of frost. She asked coldly, Did our people stop Ding Ruijie? She had sent people to look for Ding Ruijie in order to hold her back. Now that Ding Ruijie was at the foot of the Great Light Peak, it was obvious that the masters had failed to hold her back. Zhao Dai was in danger. Du Ying shook her head. I heard that Ding Ruijie is very cunning. She's very quiet, so we can't find her. She didn't go to Gale Branch. When I went to Gale Branch, Ding Ruijie was already there, and Zhao Dai had left. Sun Mingyue took a deep breath and did not say anything else. She was infuriated, but she did not lose her temper. These old men did not care about Ding Ruijie or Zhao Dai's life at all just because their cultivation levels were high. Hence, they did not care about Ding Ruijie at all. If anything happened to Zhao Dai, these old men would not be able to live a good life. Why does she want to see me? She said she has something to say to the saint. Let her come up, Sun Mingyue said coldly. Yes. Du Ying agreed and hesitated for a moment. Saint, what about junior brother Zhao? It depends on his luck, Sun Mingyue said. She could not tell what was going on with Chu Li. Logically, he was not dead, but Ding Ruijie was still here. Zhao Dai must not be having a good time. He might have been crippled and captured by Ding Ruijie. Du Ying pursed her lips and slowly nodded before leaving the Divine Light Basilica. After a while, Du Ying fluttered back and curtsied. Saint, she refused to go up the mountain. Sun Mingyue frowned. Why? She's very arrogant. She said she has something to say to the saint, and it's up to you whether you want to or not. Du Ying scoffed. Sun Mingyue thought for a moment and said, If that's the case, I'll go down the mountain and listen to her. Saint. Du Ying was displeased. Who are you and who is she? How can you do this? It's fine, Sun Mingyue said. She has the secret skill of the Prophecy Pavilion. She might have something important to say. All right, Du Ying said, but she's not our friend, she's our enemy. She might be up to no good. I understand. Sun Mingyue nodded. She walked away with light steps, and Du Ying could only follow behind her unwillingly. Both of them were extremely fast. In a short while, they arrived at the foot of the Great Light Peak and arrived at a gazebo beside the forest. A middle-aged woman in white was already sitting in the gazebo. She was still charming, and she was sitting coldly by the stone table. She held a cup of tea in her hand and stood there motionlessly like a statue. When Sun Mingyue and Du Ying arrived at the gazebo, they sized up the middle-aged woman in white. Sun Mingyue fist saluted. Greetings, Senior Ding. Ding Ruijie glanced at her. You flatter me. I'm here to look for you because there's something I must tell you. Senior Ding, please speak, Sun Mingyue said. Ding Ruijie said, It's about the Holy Church of Light's luck. Sun Mingyue was stunned. The Holy Church's luck? Ding Ruijie nodded slowly. I accidentally saw the Holy Church of Light's luck. It's not good. Senior Ding, please explain. Sun Mingyue fist saluted. What's wrong with the Holy Church's luck? From my observation, the Holy Church of Light's destruction is imminent, Ding Ruijie said in a low voice. Sun Mingyue asked, when will it be destroyed? Within 10 years, Ding Ruijie said. Why? Sun Mingyue asked without batting an eyelid. Ding Ruijie said, because of the successor. If you want to avoid the Holy Church of Light's destruction, you must resign and choose someone else to be the saint. So, I'm a scourge? Sun Mingyue smiled faintly with a hint of a smile in her eyes. Yes. Ding Ruijie nodded slowly. Forgive me for being blunt, but you and the Holy Church of Light are incompatible. If you become the saint, it won't be good for you and the Holy Church. It's better for you to separate. Interesting. Sun Mingyue's smile widened. She shook her head. Senior Ding's divination is really amazing. All right, I understand. If you don't want the Holy Church of Light to be destroyed, you must resign as soon as possible, Ding Ruijie said. That's all I have to say. Goodbye. She got up and fluttered away. Chapter 1242. Senior Ding, please wait. Sun Mingyue called out softly. Ding Ruijie paused and slowly turned to look at her. Sun Mingyue said, I see that Senior Ding has something to say. I hope Senior Ding can enlighten me. Ding Ruijie pondered and shook her head. I shouldn't talk about the Holy Church's internal affairs. Senior Ding, please speak your mind. I won't blame you, Sun Mingyue said. Ding Ruijie looked at her deeply and sighed. There's something wrong with the Holy Church's priest. What is it? Sun Mingyue frowned. Ding Ruijie said, there's a Fu dynasty traitor. I think his surname is Fong. Sun Mingyue suppressed her instinctive denial and looked at her thoughtfully. Senior Ding, you can see this? Heavenly prophecy is mysterious and unpredictable. I don't know what you can see. Ding Ruijie said plainly, I'm just telling you what I saw. It's considered a form of friendship between you and Xiao Guo. Sun Mingyue gave a fist salute. Thank you, Senior Ding. She felt a little guilty. Liang Ying's death was related to her, and she did not expect Zhao Dai to really kill Liang Ying. Ding Ruijie said, I've said what needs to be said. My worldly wish has been fulfilled. I'll never see you again. She waved her hand and fluttered away, quickly disappearing into the forest. Sun Mingyue frowned and remained silent. Doing pursed her red lips and did not let herself speak. After a while, Sun Mingyue turned around and walked back. Doing only dared to speak when she saw that her expression had relaxed. Saint, she's talking nonsense, right? You can't ignore the words of the Heavenly Prophecy Pavilion's disciple, Sun Mingyue said. Doing scoffed. She said that priest Fong Qingyang is a Fu dynasty traitor. Isn't that nonsense? Sun Mingyue did not comment. Doing said, Guardian Fong has killed many Fu dynasty martial arts masters and has always been hunted by them. I don't believe that he's a Fu dynasty traitor. Sun Mingyue smiled and did not say anything. She did not believe it either. However, the world was unpredictable, and the most unexpected was often the truth. She had never doubted Fong Qingyang's loyalty, but people were fickle. She still had to see. However, this matter could not be investigated, or people would be divided. She had a special technique, so she didn't need to investigate. She could find clues with just a few words. Send a message to Protector Fong, Sun Mingyue said. Ask him to come see me. Yes. Doing nodded helplessly. The setting sun dyed the light palace yellow, but it was still bright and clean. Sun Mingyue looked at Fong Qingyang, who was standing below, and said faintly, I met a disciple from the Heaven Mystery Pavilion, Ding Ruijie, who's Liang Ying's master's uncle, today. She said that you're from the Fu dynasty. Fong Qingyang was dressed in a green robe. His handsome face and tall posture made him look like a jade tree that stood in the wind with a dazzling expression. He couldn't help but be startled when he heard this, and he revealed an expression of disbelief. Then, his handsome face darkened and he said coldly, "Saintess, are you suspecting me?" "The people from the Pavilion of Divination suspect you," Sun Mingwe said indifferently. "What do you think I should do? The saint still doesn't believe me." Fang Qingyang's expression was dark, his eyes gleaming as he glared at her. Sun Mingwe said, "You were able to become a priest because you've been tested by the Holy Church, so I naturally believe you. That's why I want to ask you in detail, how did you offend the Pavilion of Divination?" "I have nothing to do with the Pavilion of Divination," Fang Qingyang said in a low voice. He secretly sighed in relief. It was good that the saintess believed him. He had always secretly admired the saintess and helped her wholeheartedly. It would be too sad if she suspected him because of a single sentence. Sun Mingwe said, "The Pavilion of Divination wouldn't frame you for no reason. You must have offended them somewhere. Could it be because I've killed people from the Fu dynasty?" Fang Qingyang said, "I've killed many Fu dynasty powerhouses, so it's inevitable that these people have some connection with the Pavilion of Divination. It's hard to tell them apart." Sun Mingwe nodded slowly. "It's very likely." Fang Qingyang frowned. "Why would the people from the Pavilion of Divination tell you this, Saintess? It seems that the martial arts world of the Fu dynasty is wary of the Holy Church." Sun Mingwe frowned and said slowly, "They're starting to suppress the Holy Church. That's troublesome." Fang Qingyang said, "Saintess, they won't let it go this time. Once the Pavilion of Divination says that the Holy Church will endanger the Li dynasty's imperial court, the hearts of the people." His heart sank at the thought. The words of the Pavilion of Divination were too powerful. The lethality of one sentence was equivalent to the power of a dozen grandmasters. Sun Mingwe said, "Yes, I guess the Pavilion of Divination won't let it go. They want to destroy the hearts of the people in the Holy Church." "How do we fight back?" Fang Qingyang said, "They can steal the heavenly secrets, so it'll be troublesome if we really go against them. The disciples of the Pavilion of Divination could see the past and the future. If they said that the Holy Church of Light would endanger the Li dynasty in the future, no one would dare to ignore it. Even those who did not believe it would be doubtful. This was the authority of the Pavilion of Divination." Sun Mingwe said, "We'll first announce that the Pavilion of Divination is spreading lies and that the Holy Church of Light does not welcome the disciples of the Pavilion of Divination. That's the only way." Fang Qingyang shook his head. They were forced to do so. Once such an announcement was made, it would be tantamount to becoming enemies with the Pavilion of Divination. As an enemy, they would not be fair and would inevitably say something unfavorable to the other party. This could weaken the prophecy of the Pavilion of Divination against the Holy Church of Light. However, if that was really the case, it would be completely hostile to the Pavilion of Divination. The Pavilion of Divination would definitely make a move. Sun Mingwe said faintly, "We'll become enemies sooner or later. Don't think about luck." "We're not ready yet." Fang Qingyang sighed. Sun Mingwe said, "We'll never be ready. We can act when the time is right. From now on, the responsibilities of the 4 great priests will be heavier. You have to pull yourself together and hold on at the critical moment." "Yes." Fang Qingyang felt warm and gave a fist salute. Footsteps were heard and Du Ying's voice was heard. "Saintess, Ding Ruijia has spoken again." "Come in," Sun Mingwe said. Du Ying entered quietly and gave a fist salute to Fang Qingyang. "Then," she said, "Ding Ruijia said that Priest Lu is from the Qiu dynasty." "From the Qiu dynasty." Sun Mingwe laughed and said, "All right, you can leave. Do you want Priest Lu to come over?" "No need." Sun Mingwe shook her head. Du Ying curtsied and retreated. Fang Qingyang frowned. "Who exactly is this Ding Ruijia?" "A disciple of the Pavilion of Divination," Sun Mingyue said faintly. Before the two of them could speak, Du Ying came out of the basilica again. Saintess, she said that junior brother Zhao Daif is from the Jing dynasty. Interesting. Sun Mingyue laughed. You don't have to report this to me anymore. Yes. Du Ying answered crisply and walked away. Go to the Fu dynasty and have a look. Sun Mingyue frowned and said, see what happened to the Pavilion of Divination. Yes. Fang Qingyang nodded slowly. Sun Mingyue said, I always feel that there's something strange about this Ding Ruijie. She then thought about what happened to Ding Ruijie and vaguely understood that Ding Ruijie had gone crazy and did not want to live alone. She wanted to cause a ruckus and then go to the outland to accompany her lover. That was why she acted recklessly. Fang Qingyang said, I'll go to the Fu dynasty to investigate. Chapter 1243. As the sun set in the west, Chu Li sat in his house in Gale City. The gentle light illuminated his face, but his expression was uncertain. His disguise as Ding Ruijie to sow discord between the Prophecy Pavilion and the Holy Church of Light and block Ding Ruijie's way of talking to Sun Mingyue was only a temporary solution but not a long-term solution. Ding Ruijie was still a huge threat. He had to get rid of her as soon as possible. If she exploded, he would be doomed eternally. Apart from his identity as Zhao Daif, he had many other identities such as Heavenly Demonic Sect, Green Deer Cliff, and Crouching Bull Mountain. If the Prophecy Pavilion saw through all of them and Ding Ruijie exposed them, he would not have a chance to turn things around. He frowned as he thought about this. Ding Ruijie could not predict all of this. It might be because of the 4 scriptures he cultivated, or because he had reincarnated and was able to suppress his fate from being seen through. Otherwise, Ding Ruijie would have made a move to prevent him from turning things around. He shook his head and sighed. Although he knew the whereabouts of the last 3 stages of the spirit crane technique, he did not have the energy to look for them. His top priority was to get rid of Ding Ruijie, but it was extremely difficult to do so now. The Prophecy Pavilion had protected her and he could not sense her presence. When he thought of this, he disappeared in a flash and appeared outside the 5 Ultimate Universe formation. Ding Ruijie was nowhere to be seen. It was as if she had vanished into thin air and was no longer in this world. He could not sense her at all. She must have been brought back to the Prophecy Pavilion by Zhu Hua. It was as if there was a sword hanging above his head that could fall at any time. This feeling of having a fishbone stuck in one's throat was the most torturous and could drive one crazy. He stood at the peak of the mountain and looked down at the 5 Ultimate Universe formation. He sighed. It seemed like he had to make a trip to the Prophecy Pavilion. The next moment, he suddenly appeared in the main hall of the Secret Guardians Hall in Fairy's capital. The main hall was brightly lit, but Lu Yurong was alone. She wore a white tunic and sat quietly behind the table, calmly reading the dossiers. The bright light shone on her forehead and her bright eyes. Lu Yurong raised her head and looked at Chu Li with a smile. Lu Yurong raised her head and looked at Chu Li. Her eyes revealed a hint of a smile. You don't come to me without a reason. What is it? Speak. Chu Li sat on the armchair. I want to inquire about the Destiny Pavilion. Lu Yurong stood up and left the desk. She came to sit opposite him. She was elegant and light, and a faint fragrance floated in the air. You've provoked the Tianji Pavilion again, haven't you? His ability to stir up trouble is truly top-notch. Chu Li glanced at her. Lu Yurong pursed her lips and chuckled. The Tianji Pavilion is a formidable force. You'd better not provoke them. Rumble. Back? Gong Gong Ji. Lu Yurong smiled and said, They and the Goddess Attraction Mountain are famous for being mysterious and unpredictable. They can pry into the mysteries of heaven and see the future. How does it compare to the Stargazing Pavilion? Chu Li asked. Slightly inferior to the Stargazing Pavilion. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, however, the stargazing pavilion does not concern itself with worldly affairs, just like the goddess attraction mountain. The Tianji pavilion, on the other hand, has many disciples roaming the world, so their influence is greater. Where are these successors? The imperial court of the Fu dynasty has some of them, and so do the major sects, Lu Yurong said. After all, they have the ability to see the future, and all of them are honored guests. Chu Li furrowed his brows. Their disciples' martial arts are also extremely powerful. Yes, Lu Yurong slowly said, they are all people with extraordinary talents, and have a deep understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. They can cultivate formations with twice the results with half the effort, and they also cultivate some antique martial arts. There are not many disciples in the Tianji pavilion, but any one of them is a top-notch master. Chu Li asked, where is the Tianji pavilion located? You want to cause trouble for the Tianji pavilion? Lu Yurong shook her head and said, let me give you a piece of advice, just forget about it. Don't ask for trouble. Chu Li coldly laughed. Lu Yurong said, they can sense anyone who wants to cause trouble for them in advance, and wait for them to exhaust themselves. The Tianji pavilion is not an ordinary faction. You coming here like this is suicidal. Chu Li said, is there no one in the Tianji pavilion who can stop them? Ordinary factions can't do anything to them. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, only the goddess attraction mountain and the stargazing pavilion can. Chu Li scoffed and said, what techniques or treasures can stop their prying? If it's that easy to stop them, they wouldn't be so famous. Lu Yurong pondered and said, but there are some treasures, such as the relics of eminent monks, heaven and god pills, or the Titanium Temple and the Tempest Temple's signature martial arts. Chu Li frowned and said, they can stop prying? These treasures and antique studies can block their own divination, Lu Yurong said. But they can't cover everything, it's better than nothing, or else it'll be easy for them to see their future. Chu Li slowly nodded. He understood why Ding Ruijie could only tell that he was from the Ji dynasty, and nothing else. It seemed that it had something to do with the titanium relic and Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture. Unfortunately, Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture was not strong enough, or else Ding Ruijie would not be able to see through it and would not be afraid of her. Chu Li asked, how can I stop their martial arts? That can't be helped. Lu Yurong spread her hands and said, we can only rely on our own abilities. Their martial arts are profound, and with their unique talent, they can see through their opponent's moves in advance, which is very difficult to deal with. Chu Li said, is there no way to stop them? No. Lu Yurong said. Chu Li frowned and said, you don't know where the prophecy pavilion is, do you? Lu Yurong shook her head. I advise you not to go. Since we've already become enemies, there's no point in compromising, Chu Li said. I can only strike first. Lu Yurong smiled faintly. That's the Fu dynasty's faction. And it's the prophecy pavilion. I'm amazed at your ability to make enemies. Chu Li scoffed. You're gloating. Lu Yurong smiled. I'm just curious how you provoke them. Chu Li shook his head and said nothing. Lu Yurong saw that she could not get an answer out of him, so she stopped smiling and said, I heard that the Prophecy Pavilion's disciples often appear in the Cloud Dream Mountain. Chu Li said, the Cloud Dream Mountain, Lu Yurong said, the Prophecy Pavilion is proficient in formations, and the faction must be protected by formations. Ordinary people can't see it even if they get close. I advise you not to waste your energy. Why don't you offer a humble apology? Chu Li glared at her. Lu Yurong burst into laughter. Isn't that too hard on you? Chu Li said, if it works, it's fine if I offer a humble apology. He had Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture and the titanium sarira, but Ko Cheong and the others did not. It was not a big deal to give in for now. If he lost face, then so be it, he would get it back in the future. However, he was Ding Ruijie's mortal enemy. Unless he committed suicide, there was no point in giving in. Looks like it's a mortal enemy, Lu Yurong said. Then you can only pray for your own good. Chu Li waved his hand. Forget it, I'll leave first. Wait. Lu Yurong quickly extended her hand. Chu Li looked at her. Lu Yurong said, Prince Kong finally agreed, and the consort faked her death to escape. Chu Li nodded. It was expected that Prince Kong would eventually choose this. Lu Yurong frowned. The Holy Church of Light's disciples came to investigate. Chu Li looked at her without saying a word. Lu Yurong said, These Holy Church of Light's disciples are impossible to guard against. Chu Li said, I don't have the leisure to do that now. He understood what Lu Yurong meant. She wanted him to help find the Holy Church of Light's disciples. Lu Yurong looked at him with a smile. Chapter 1244. Chu Li saw her expression and showed a helpless expression. You're going to use a favor just for the disciples of the Holy Church of Light? Yes, Lu Yurong nodded. It's a disgrace to the Secret Guardians Hall to let them wreak havoc in the fairy's capital. Chu Li looked at her and saw her determined expression. He nodded. Fine, I'll help. Lu Yurong instantly smiled. Although he could not see her face clearly, he could feel her joy. Then let's start tomorrow. No need for tomorrow, Chu Li said. Let's do it tonight. I'll walk around the fairy's capital and see if I can find the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. All right. Lu Yurong could not wait for it to happen as soon as possible. Just the two of us, Chu Li said. I don't want this to cause a commotion, and it can also help you establish your authority. All right, Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. It's rare for you to be so kind. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Let's go, we'll start now. All right. Lu Yurong stood up. The two exited the main entrance of the Secret Guardians Hall and walked west along the main street. One was dignified and heroic, while the other was graceful. Although her face was covered by a white veil, she still looked stunning. The two attracted a lot of attention when they walked together. The two strolled calmly. When they were about a mile away, Chu Li suddenly pointed at a house opposite them. There are two of them here. Lu Yurong was startled and frowned at the ordinary house. The gate was not big and the dark red door was obviously a declining family. Chu Li shook his head. Don't ask why or how. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Continue. He did not stop walking and Lu Yurong did not ask any more to prevent Chu Li from leaving. In the following night, Chu Li and Lu Yurong walked around the entire fairy's capital. Chu Li pointed out 6 places in one breath, and all of them had disciples of the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong was shocked. The fairy's capital was heavily guarded. Grandmasters who entered the fairy's capital would be closely monitored. However, 6 batches of disciples of the Holy Church of Light were still allowed in. This showed how terrifying the Holy Church of Light was. Chu Li and Lu Yurong returned to the main entrance of the imperial residence of King An. Before Chu Li entered the door, he said to Lu Yurong, There are disciples of the Holy Church of Light in all 6 locations, but it's impossible to catch them all at once. Lu Yurong frowned as she muttered to herself. She also knew that it would be too greedy to catch all of them in one fell swoop. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light were not easy to deal with. With the strength of the Secret Guardians Hall, it was already very difficult to capture 1 or 2 of them. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light would often perish together, so it would be extremely difficult to capture them alive. Chu Li said, That's why you can only choose 1. At most, you can attack 2 at the same time. You can't be too greedy. Where? Lu Yurong asked. Chu Li said, First, there are 3 masters from the Holy Church of Light hiding there. They have the highest cultivation level among all of us. If we can get rid of them, it'll be a big deal. Sure, Lu Yurong agreed without hesitation. She believed in Chu Li's judgment and believed that he would not harm her. Chu Li smiled. I'm afraid that the people from the Secret Guardians Hall might not be able to take them down. It's time for you to show off your abilities. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong shook her head lightly. Chu Li said, "In my opinion, you guys might not be able to take them down." Chu Li had a full understanding of the power of the secret technique of Great Light. It was truly shocking. What was more terrifying was that their faith was firm and they were not afraid of death. They could unleash their extraordinary strength. Lu Yurong smiled. "Are you going to help?" Chu Li shook his head. Lu Yurong said, "Are you really going to attack the Prophecy Pavilion?" "I want to go and see for myself," Chu Li said. Lu Yurong chuckled. "I advise you not to ask for trouble." Chu Li frowned and remained silent. He did not want to provoke a faction like the Prophecy Pavilion, but Ding Ruijie's existence was like a fishbone in his throat. If Ding Ruijie could give up on revenge, he would not provoke her. However, Ding Ruijie would never let him go. He could only strike first. After all, passive defense was not a long-term solution. Chu Li returned to Gale Branch and sent 2 Gale Branch disciples to the Cloud Dream Mountain. Then, he returned to Fairy's capital and hid in the dark to observe Lu Yurong's actions. The night was hazy. Lu Yurong led a group of men in black and quietly sneaked under the shadow of the wall. Their footsteps were light and silent. They arrived at a slightly dilapidated house and jumped over the wall. Other than Lu Yurong, there were 10 other grandmasters. 6 of them were masters from May Air Courtyard and the other 4 were from other courtyards. They were all elites of the Secret Guardians Hall. Lu Yurong stood on a rooftop far away and looked down from above. 10 grandmasters silently flipped over the wall and landed in the courtyard. Lu Yurong said in a low voice, "They've escaped, quickly chase after them." She saw the 4 gray-clothed men fluttering away from the small courtyard and speeding off into the distance. After letting out a shout, she frowned. These 4 men were so vigilant. It was impossible to surround them secretly. They would definitely cause a big commotion. If they could not take them down in the end, the Secret Guardians Hall would be embarrassed and she would lose face. Although she had established her prestige when she dealt with Prince Kong last time and no one dared to act presumptuously, it was still far from enough. She needed enough victories to accumulate enough prestige. She could only rely on scaring people for a while, and it would not last long. Thinking about this, she suddenly flashed and turned into a white light in front of the 4 men in gray. The Empyrean fairy palm struck 4 times in an instant. Bam, 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 bam. The 4 men in gray turned over and retreated. They did not expect Lu Yurong's Empyrean fairy palm to be so powerful. With this delay, the 10 people from the Secret Guardians Hall surrounded them and fought fiercely. The 4 men in gray immediately activated their secret skill. Suddenly, the aura around them surged. 4 rays of moonlight fell on them from the sky, causing their bodies to emit a luster. Their bodies were as warm as jade. Their body movement technique suddenly sped up and their palm energy became violent and unstoppable. "Use your secret skill," Lu Yurong said in a low voice. Even if it was 10 against 4, they would not be able to suppress them without using their secret skill. The 10 masters from the Secret Guardians Hall activated their secret skill, but before they could complete it, the 4 elders in gray suddenly joined forces and pushed out a palm. The palm energy of the 4 people overlapped and was invincible. The 4 masters from the Secret Guardians Hall suddenly flew out and spat out arrows of blood in the air. Lu Yurong's face darkened. She floated up and blocked the gap. She struck 4 palms consecutively. The 4 palm energy overlapped and collided with the palm energy of the 4 men in gray. Bang! With a thunder-like sound, Lu Yurong fluttered backward. Her white shirt was fluttering as if she was in a strong wind. She had already suffered some internal injuries. The power of the 4 people's joint attack was beyond her imagination. The remaining 6 grandmasters attacked but were easily dodged by the 4 men in gray. Their body movement technique became as fast as ghosts, and it was extremely difficult to hit them. Lu Yurong's heart was surging with killing intent. The more powerful they were, the more they must stay. They must not be allowed to leave Fairy's capital safely. Otherwise, it would be a joke if the Holy Church of Light could do as they pleased in Fairy's capital. Bam 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 bam. The 4 men in gray once again joined forces and attacked the remaining 6 people. The masters from the Secret Guardians Hall had already used their secret skill and were equally matched with them. Chapter 1245. Lu Yurong saw this and her expression changed. She shouted, "Oh no!" Even the 4 Secret Guardians Hall powerhouses who were injured knew that something was wrong. This meant that the disciples of the Holy Church of Light were about to ascend to the Outland. Lu Yurong could not care less. She snorted softly and her body instantly turned into a blurry shadow, hitting the 4 of them in the blink of an eye. No matter how fast they were unable to avoid this palm strike. Each of them suffered a blow from her Empyrean fairy palm. Lu Yurong was sure that if they were hit by the 9th Heaven Mystic Fairy Palm, they would be severely injured or even killed. However, after the 4 of them were hit, the light on their bodies became brighter. It was so bright that it was blinding to look at them directly. Lu Yurong frowned in confusion. She turned to look at the 10 masters from the Secret Guardians Hall. They were also suspicious. The 4 of them suddenly let out a long howl almost at the same time. The howl was like a rolling tide, shaking the blood of the Secret Guardians Hall masters and causing their expressions to change slightly. Lu Yurong frowned. The 4 of them seemed to be even more powerful than before. As time passed, they seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. This did not make sense. The 4 of them were like torches, burning brighter and brighter. Immediately, she understood the principles behind the 4's secret technique. She burned like a torch, burning more and more fiercely. After the whistling sound, the radiance on the 4 people's bodies suddenly became even brighter. It was so bright that one couldn't look at it directly, like a scorching sun. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and the 4 of them turned into 4 beams of light that shot into the sky. Suddenly, a door of light appeared in the night sky. It was illusory and clear. It was huge and vast. It slowly opened, and the vague silhouettes of palaces and people could be seen inside the door. It seemed like there were people flying inside. 4 beams of light shot to the door and 4 figures appeared. This strange phenomenon startled the people of the fairies' capital. They all raised their heads to take a look. Those who understood already knew that the gates of the sky beyond heaven had been opened. Someone had ascended to the sky beyond heaven, and it was a joyous occasion. Chu Li laughed in the dark. Lu Yurong had failed this time. Lu Yurong stared at the door of light in the sky. Her brows were tightly knitted together, and her eyes flashed with anger. They had embarrassed themselves this time. Moreover, as soon as the light door appeared, the rest of the Holy Church of Light's disciples knew that they should not even think about attacking again. This time, the purge operation was considered a complete failure. Chu Li saw Lu Yurong's expression through the omniscient mirror and could not help but smile. He was happy to see Lu Yurong being humiliated. As the sun set, Chu Li looked at the Cloud Dream Mountain in front of him and was filled with emotions. This mountain didn't look very tall. At first glance, there were only bare rocks and no trees. It really didn't make people have the desire to climb it. Just a glance would make people want to turn around and leave. The bare rocks faintly emitted an oppressive chill, desolate and barren. However, Chu Li could tell that this mountain was just a smokescreen. It was shrouded in a huge formation, so it was impossible to climb up. One would have to go around in circles and would never be able to find the way up the mountain. For such a formation to be used as a disguise, it was definitely from a famous sect. Moreover, it was a large sect with a long history. Ordinary sects did not have such a powerful formation. This was the Dream Cloud Mountain where the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries was located. At first, he suspected that Lu Yurong was lying to him. However, after seeing the appearance of the Cloud Dream Mountain, he believed her. He used the omniscient mirror to observe the formation. Since it was covered by the formation, The omniscient mirror could not see through it. He could only observe the general situation. It was like looking at flowers in the fog or the moon in the water, everything was hazy. After observing for a while, he could not tell what kind of formation it was. It seemed to be a combination of several formations. He could not understand what this formation was, but he knew that it must be powerful. His instincts kept warning him not to go near it. After observing for a while, Chuli suddenly disappeared and returned to Gale Branch. Just as he sat in his house in Gale City, he heard footsteps coming from outside. Ko Cheong's voice was heard. "Young master! You're here at the right time. Come in," Chuli said. Ko Cheong opened the door and entered. He gave Chuli a fist salute. "Young master, something bad has happened." Chuli pointed at the armchair opposite him. Ko Cheong sat opposite him and said, "Recently, I've heard rumors about you from the Great Light Peak." "What rumors?" Chuli asked casually. "They say that you're not from the Li dynasty," Ko Cheong said. Chuli laughed. "If I'm not from the Li dynasty, where am I from? Some say that you're from the Jing dynasty, some say that you're from the Qiu dynasty, and some say that you're from the Fu dynasty." Ko Cheong shook his head. "There are all kinds of rumors, but many people are curious about which country you're from, young master." Chu Li's expression changed. He was not the one who spread the rumor. Back then, he claimed that he was a citizen of the Jing dynasty in order to mislead the public. He gambled to shut Ding Ruijie's mouth, so that Ding Ruijie would never see Sun Mingyue again. Now, it seemed that his plan was a success. However, when he heard this rumor, Chu Li sensed a conspiracy. Some said that he was from the Jing dynasty, some said that he was from the Qiu dynasty, and some said that he was from the Fu dynasty. This gave everyone the impression that he was not from the Li dynasty. Most importantly, Sun Mingyue could see through the hearts of the others and know whether they were loyal or not, but she could not see through him. As the saint of the Holy Church of Light, Sun Mingyue held a high position and was almost second only to the Lord. She even ruled the Holy Church of Light alone. Naturally, she had the common problem of being suspicious and distrustful of others. If these rumors reached Sun Mingyue's ears, no matter how determined she was, she would still want to investigate him. Chu Li frowned and pondered. If Sun Mingyue investigated carefully, she would inevitably find some clues. This must be Ding Ruijie's conspiracy. She beat him at his own game and tricked him again. "Young master, these rumors are a little strange." Ko Cheong frowned and said, "Could it be that someone from the Holy Church of Light wants to deal with you, young master?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded. "How do we find that person?" Ko Cheong said, "Since they've made a move, we must retaliate." Chu Li said, "I'll return to the Great Light Peak immediately." Ko Cheong looked worried. "Young master, are these rumors really that powerful?" Chu Li frowned and said, "That depends on what the saint thinks." "Then be careful, young master," Ko Cheong said. Chu Li waved his hand and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared at the foot of the Great Light Peak and glided up the peak to the Divine Light Basilica. Doing was standing on the steps. When she saw him, her eyes flashed, but she turned around and returned to the basilica to report to Sun Mingyue. A moment later, Doing stood on the steps and gave a fist salute. "Junior brother Do, come in." Chu Li gave a fist salute and stepped into the Divine Light Basilica. He went to the center of the basilica and looked at Sun Mingyue, who was sitting behind the table. Sun Mingyue was dressed in white with a white veil covering her face. She looked at him calmly. Chu Li said, "Saint, I'm here to ask for forgiveness." "What kind of punishment?" Sun Mingyue asked. Her eyes were cold as she looked at Chu Li with a probing gaze. Chu Li said, "I've offended the prophecy pavilion and caused great trouble for the Holy Church." Sun Mingyue said, "Ding Ruijie?" Chu Li nodded slowly and said, "I know how powerful the prophecy pavilion is. Now that I've experienced it for myself, it's indeed terrifying." "You're here because of the rumors, right?" Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li said, the public's words can melt gold. No matter how upright I am, I can't stand this. I'm afraid that everyone thinks that I'm not from the Li dynasty, and that I'm a traitor of the Holy Church. If the Prophecy Pavilion does this to the Holy Church, there'll be endless trouble. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 1246. You're here for this? Sun Mingyue frowned. Chu Li replied, I'm worried that if I don't come, I'll really become a traitor and be hunted by the Holy Church. Do you not trust me that much? Sun Mingyue said impatiently, or are you feeling guilty? Chu Li smiled bitterly. Saint. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Do you really think I won't trust you just because of some rumors? Chu Li replied, rumors make a tiger out of a tiger. I have to be careful. After all, I've only been in the church for a short time, and my foundation is still shallow. It's inevitable that people don't trust me. Although you've only been in the church for a short time, you're no longer an ordinary disciple. You're a branch leader and have naturally been inspected by the Holy Church, so you can rest assured. However, the Prophecy Pavilion is indeed powerful, so you can't ignore them. Chu Li said, I'm worried that the Prophecy Pavilion will vent their anger on the Holy Church. Let them. Sun Mingyue said, the Holy Church is never afraid of making enemies. Chu Li nodded and was relieved. It seemed that Sun Mingyue did not suspect him for the time being. He blamed Ding Ruijie for being too impatient. With so many rumors falling on him, it was obvious that they were targeting him. Sun Mingyue knew the grudge between him and Ding Ruijie the best, so she naturally would not believe Ding Ruijie's words. Chu Li asked, is there any secret skill that can restrain the Prophecy Pavilion? The Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill comes from the Stargazing Pavilion. They're ranked second among the 8 major sections. Sun Mingyue shook her head. For the time being, there's no way to restrain them. Only those who cultivate Buddhist secret skills or have secret treasures can resist their prying. You've cultivated Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture, so you don't have to be afraid. This was also why she did not trust Ding Ruijie. Zhao Dai cultivated Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture, so she could not see through his thoughts. The Prophecy Pavilion could not see Zhao Dai's fate either. It was obviously nonsense to say that there was a traitor. Chu Li frowned. There's a secret skill that can't be restrained in this world? The Stargazing Pavilion must know, but they won't spread it, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li sighed. Do I have to wait for Ding Ruijie to cause me trouble? It can't be helped, Sun Mingyue said. She was also worried about Chu Li. A person like Ding Ruijie was indeed difficult to deal with. The most important thing was the secret skill of heavenly prophecy, which could predict good or bad luck. If Ding Ruijie wanted to harm her, she could predict it and avoid it in advance. No matter how powerful Zhao Dai was, it would be useless. He would not be able to find Ding Ruijie. The tricky thing was that Ding Ruijie's relatives were all dead, so she had no weaknesses. She was not like Zhao Dai, whose Gale branch was his biggest weakness. If Zhao Dai wanted to find him, he did not have to search all over the world. He just had to deal with Gale branch directly, and he would naturally appear. Chu Li shook his head in resignation. Sun Mingyue said, are you regretting accepting the mission? Yes. Chu Li nodded without hesitation. Sun Mingyue snorted and said, you're quite frank. Chu Li replied, I can't hide my thoughts. If I hadn't killed Liang'inga, I wouldn't have gotten myself into so much trouble. At the end of the day, I've taken the blame for you, Saint. Sun Mingyue said with a faint smile, don't you want to be the scapegoat? Chu Li sighed. Now that things have come to this, I have no choice but to bear the responsibility. It's good that you understand. Sun Mingyue rolled her eyes at him and said, don't even think about it. Gather? Grasshopper? Fluttering Luan sang? Joyful Luan sang? Fluttering Luan sang? Chu Li said, the Holy Church of Light's masters don't dare to kill her? Saint, didn't you send a lot of masters? She can predict it. Sun Mingyue shook her head. It doesn't matter how many masters there are, and the more masters there are, the easier it is for her to predict it. So I can only deal with it passively? Chu Li frowned. I can't kill her, and I can't hide from her. It's troublesome. Sun Mingyue said, Take it slow, don't rush. Chu Li took a deep breath. Du Ying's voice was heard from beneath their feet. Saint, the Method King is here. Invite him in, Sun Mingyue said. Fang Qingyang, who was dressed in a green robe, slowly walked over. He was handsome and elegant. He gave a fist salute. Greetings, Saint. Chu Li gave him a fist salute. Fang Qingyang sized Chu Li up and said, I didn't expect branch leader Zhao to be here too. Chu Li said, Saint, I'll take my leave first. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Wait for a while. Chu Li retreated to the side and said nothing. Fang Qingyang said, Saint, I'm afraid, why, you don't want to go to the Ji dynasty? Sun Mingyue frowned as she sized him up. Tell me why. I don't think a little girl is worth my time, Fang Qingyang said. Sun Mingyue scoffed. A little girl's martial arts is extraordinary. We've sent so many masters but still couldn't take her down. Now that her reputation is growing, if we don't kill her, we'll become a joke in the Holy Church of Light. Just ignore her, Fang Qingyang said. She's just a small faction, it's not worth mentioning. She's grown up and has great potential. Sun Mingyue frowned. If we don't get rid of her, she'll become even more powerful. In the end, no one in the Holy Church of Light will be able to control her. She's not that powerful. Fang Qingyang shook his head and smiled. She's just a little girl with a shallow foundation. Her achievements are limited. Sun Mingyue tilted her head and looked at him. Fang Qingyang looked a little embarrassed. Sun Mingyue said, Method King, you've always tried your best to catch a rabbit, but you're belittling that little girl today. It's very unusual. You know her, right? Don't lie to me, you should know that I can tell. Yes, to be honest, Saint, she's my savior. Fang Qingyang sighed. Sun Mingyue asked, Savior? I was ambushed and injured by a disciple of the Tempest Temple. Fang Qingyang said, I almost lost my life, but thanks to her, I managed to survive. Sun Mingyue laughed. How interesting. She's your savior. Fang Qingyang shook his head helplessly. That's why I'm in a difficult position, I can't do anything about it. That's true. Sun Mingyue said, It'll be too hard on you if you attack your savior. Fang Qingyang said, Saint, I'll help her once. Sun Mingyue shook her head. We can't let her go. She killed our disciple, so she has no choice but to be killed. Fang Qingyang said, But, it's a personal matter for her to save you, but we can't ignore the public's duty because of it. She's a big problem. Sun Mingyue said, Since you can't go, I'll send someone else to save you the trouble. Fang Qingyang's expression was tense and unpleasant. Sun Mingyue turned to look at Chu Li. Zhao Dai, you go. Who are you going to kill this time? Chu Li asked. Li Hanyan, a disciple of Snow Lunar Pavilion. She has a close relationship with Chu Li. Sun Mingyue said, So you have to end this quickly and don't let Chu Li interfere. Saint, you promised me that you won't be doing any errands this year. Chu Li shook his head. He did not say anything, but his heart sank. In the end, he could not delay it for long. Sun Mingyue's foresight was too sharp, and she was going to be ruthless. Sun Mingyue said, This is a great merit. If you can get it, you'll be promoted to patrol without a problem. Chu Li shook his head. I don't want to kill women. Ding Ruijie is a woman. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Chu Li said, Saint, you should find someone else. Sun Mingyue frowned as she stared at him, her gaze gradually turning cold. Chapter 1247. Chu Li coughed softly. My saint, I want to enter the Sutra Library and see if I can find a secret skill that can restrain the Prophecy Pavilion. Killing a young lady is not worth mentioning, it's better to send someone else. The Holy Church is full of masters, I won't make a difference. You. Sun Mingyue's gaze softened as she stared at him. You're getting bolder. Being so presumptuous in front of Fang Qingyang and ruining her reputation, she did want to kill him. Chu Li said, actually, there's no need to kill her. Sun Mingyue said coldly, she killed the Holy Church's patrol. About that. Chu Li turned to look at Fang Qingyang. Fang Qingyang hurriedly said, my saint, it was the patrol who started it, she can't be blamed. She can't just wait to die, can she? It doesn't matter if she kills Li Hanyan or not, it won't damage the Holy Church's reputation. Priest. Sun Mingyue scoffed. You're the Holy Church's priest. Fang Qingyang hurriedly said, how about I make her our high official? High official. Sun Mingyue frowned as she pondered. Fang Qingyang stared at her eagerly and pleaded, my saint, I can relinquish my position as priest. Looks like you've fallen for her. Sun Mingyue scoffed as she looked at Fang Qingyang. Fang Qingyang shook his head. I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. She has a grudge against us, but you're indebted to her. This is troublesome. Sun Mingyue frowned as she pondered. She got up and paced at the bottom of the steps with her hands behind her back. Chu Li glanced at Fang Qingyang and sighed. He did not expect Fang Qingyang to really fall for Li Hanyan. He sighed inwardly. Nothing was too strange in this world. He treated Li Hanyan more like a younger sister, so he did not feel jealous when he saw Fang Qingyang liking her. Unfortunately, Fang Qingyang could only dream about it and it would never come true. The Holy Church of Light and Snow Lunar Pavilion were sworn enemies, so it was impossible for them to be together. More importantly, he knew that Li Hanyan had no feelings for Fang Qingyang. It was Fang Qingyang's unrequited love. He had heard from Li Hanyan that she had saved someone, so he saw Fang Qingyang's face in her mind. He wondered if Fang Qingyang had used a honey trap, but after some thought, he felt that Fang Qingyang would not resort to such means, so he did not remind her. Now, it seemed that Fang Qingyang had fallen in love with Li Hanyan at first sight. He frowned and felt a headache coming on. There was a fine line between love and hate. Fang Qingyang had fallen for Li Hanyan, but Li Hanyan had not fallen for Fang Qingyang. In the end, it was very likely that Fang Qingyang's love would turn into hate, and he would seek revenge on Li Hanyan in a frenzy. Although the Snow Lunar Pavilion was strong, it was far from being a match for the Holy Church of Light. Now that Fang Qingyang was protecting Li Hanyan, if they had a falling out in the future, he would probably want to destroy the Snow Lunar Pavilion the most. He was thinking the worst of people, but it was also possible that Fang Qingyang was still infatuated and devoted. Fang Qingyang stared at Sun Mingyue without saying a word, his expression tense. After a short while, Sun Mingyue stopped and said indifferently, all right, she can be spared from death if she becomes our revered elder. Fang Qingyang was overjoyed. Thank you, Saint. Thank you, Saint. There's no need to thank me, convince her first. Sun Mingyue said, Priest, convincing her isn't as easy as you think. Yes. Fang Qingyang said, but I'll definitely convince her. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. I'm making an exception because of your hard work and contributions. There won't be a next time. If she refuses to come to her senses, don't blame me for taking her life. Yes. Fang Qingyang nodded sternly. Sun Mingyue glared at Chu Li. Next time, I'll do it myself. Fang Qingyang smiled bitterly and sighed inwardly. He really had no confidence in convincing Li Hanyan. Although they had only known each other for a short time, he understood her stubborn temper. It would be extremely difficult to convince her to become a revered elder of the Holy Church of Light. It was originally a delaying tactic to stall for time so that the saint would forget about her, but it seemed like the saint had seen through it. Sun Mingyue waved her hand and Fang Qingyang tactfully gave a fist salute. Chu Li also did a fist salute. Saint, can I go to the Sutra Tower? Go, go, Sun Mingyue said impatiently. Chu Li left as well. Fang Qingyang was waiting outside the basilica. Priest. Chu Li gave a fist salute. Fang Qingyang gestured for the two to walk together. The two went down the steps and walked along the path down the mountain. Sigh. Branch leader Zhao, thank you very much. Fang Qingyang sighed. Chu Li said, Priest, you're too kind. I really didn't want to kill a little girl. Li Hanyan is no ordinary master. Fang Qingyang shook his head. If we can recruit her, it'll be of great benefit to our holy church. Chu Li smiled. Yes, then I wish Fuang success. Fang Qingyang smiled bitterly. Chu Li asked, Is that Li Hanyan really that powerful? Fang Qingyang nodded slowly. Even I might not be able to defeat her. That's rare. Chu Li smiled. Snow Lunar Pavilion swordsmanship is very ordinary, right? She's related to the White Shroud Shindao Dufeng. Her martial arts were probably taught to her by Dufeng. Fang Qingyang sighed. Her swordsmanship is outstanding and makes up for her lack of cultivation level. Chu Li nodded slowly. Dufeng? No wonder. Have you found any traces of Dufeng? He's hidden in the Fu dynasty and there are countless mountains in the Fu dynasty. Who can find him? Fang Qingyang shook his head. That's why the disciples of the church gave up on the search. I'm also worried that if we kill Li Hanyan, we'll provoke Dufeng. Chu Li smiled. Are we still afraid of Dufeng? Fang Qingyang said in a low voice. The Holy Church has many martial arts masters, but there are very few who can really block an enlightened master's attack. I'm just afraid that Dufeng will attack secretly and our Holy Church will suffer heavy losses. Chu Li said, I really want to fight with Dufeng. I advise you to give up on this idea. Fang Qingyang shook his head. Branch leader Zhao, although your martial arts is strong, you're no match for Dufeng. Chu Li showed an unconvinced expression. The two unknowingly walked halfway up the mountain. Fang Qingyang fist saluted and left. Chu Li went to the first peak. This time, he made up his mind to read through the sutra library and store all the books in his mind to see if he could find a way to restrain the Divine Design Pavilion. The world was so big, he did not believe that no one could restrain the Divine Design Pavilion. As the sun set, the afterglow shone on Gale Branch. The martial arts field in Gale Branch was bustling with activity. A group of disciples in the branch were training on the martial arts field. Some practiced with knives, some with swords, and some with fists and kicks. 10 of them were grandmasters and 20 were innate masters. Ko Chiong and the other 2 were also training on the martial arts field, leading by example. A figure suddenly appeared on top of the wall, looking down at the crowd. It was Ding Ruijia. Her black robe fluttered in the wind. Her beautiful face was pale without a trace of blood. It was obvious that her old injuries had not healed yet. She stared at the crowd indifferently as if she was looking at 30 dead people. Ko Chiong and the other 2 were extremely vigilant. They felt something was wrong and when they saw Ding Ruijia, their expressions changed. Ding Ruijia disappeared from the top of the wall in a flash and appeared behind an innate master of Gale Branch. She lightly hit him with her palm, which was enough to take his life. Stop! Ko Chiong shouted. Ding Ruijia ignored him and hit him with her palm. The innate master immediately fell to the ground. His breath stopped and he could not resist. She flashed behind another innate master and hit him again. Chapter 1248. Ko Chiong opened his palm and the powder fell from his palm. He had crushed a jade pendant. According to young master, it was the key to the formation. Once it was crushed, the formation would be activated. Looking at the mountains in front of him, Ko Chiong could not help but admire the wonders of the formation. He had long heard of the formation, and now it seemed that it was indeed worthy of its reputation. Using a strange step technique, he quickly came to the side of the dead Gale Branch disciple. He took out a spirit blessing pill and stuffed it into the disciple's mouth. Then, He patted the pill a few times to help the pill dissolve, and his heartbeat quickly recovered. He did not know that it was a spirit blessing pill. His appearance had changed, so it was difficult to associate it with the spirit blessing pill. When the disciple's breathing and heartbeat returned, Ko Cheong secretly sighed in relief. He took out another jade pendant and crushed it gently. Chuli was flipping through the books in the sutra library. He flipped through one book after another, starting from the first floor. He flipped through the books at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he had flipped through a book. Even so, he still felt that it was slow. Suddenly, he felt his heart palpitate. He put down the book and walked to a corner. When he saw that there was no one around, he suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in Gale Branch. Ko Cheong and the others had already left the formation. Ko Cheong sent them away and told them not to stay and watch. He, Lu Shu, and Feng Wuji sat in a gazebo and looked at Ding Ruijie, who was moving quickly in the field. Ding Ruijie's expression was calm. She did not panic at all and seemed to be deep in thought. When they saw Chuli, Ko Cheong and the others quickly got up and fist saluted him. Chuli waved his hand. "You guys go. Young master, let's stay and help?" Ko Cheong asked. He knew how terrifying Ding Ruijie was. Chuli said, "If you stay, you'll only drag me down and make me worry." "Yes." Ko Cheong and the others smiled bitterly and fist saluted helplessly before leaving the courtyard. Only Chuli and Ding Ruijie were left in Gale Branch. The others had left, so it was empty. Ding Ruijie walked even faster, as if she was riding the wind. However, Chuli knew that she was about to use her secret technique to escape from the formation. This secret technique of the Prophecy Pavilion was truly profound. It actually allowed one to become one with the heavens and not be trapped by the formation. Even if there were all sorts of consequences, it was still shockingly powerful. Chuli was extremely envious of this set of secret skills. If he could learn it, he would be able to break into the Prophecy Pavilion. Any big sect would be as easy as walking on flat ground. Coupled with his heavenly demonic power, he would be able to reap great rewards. He narrowed his eyes. If the array formation that he had painstakingly set up could not trap Ding Ruijie, then there was really nothing he could do. He was good at turning negative into positive. Gale Branch was not only his weakness, but also the most fatal bait. He had predicted that Ding Ruijie would come again, so he had already set up a formation to wait for her. As a descendant of the Prophecy Pavilion, Ding Ruijie should be able to predict that Gale Branch was in danger and that it was a trap. However, Chuli was certain that she would not be able to reject the offer because he had no other weaknesses other than Gale Branch. She could not possibly go to the Great Light Peak to find him. Ding Ruijie must have thought that he couldn't do anything to her because of her secret skills. Even if she knew it was a trap, she still had to take it. Everything was as he had expected. Ding Ruijie had indeed come. This array was the most complicated one he had ever seen. It was called the Yin and Yang formation. Everything inside the formation was reversed. Yin and Yang were reversed, and the illusion and reality were reversed. It formed a wonderful world. The principle was simple, but the formation was extremely complicated. If one wanted to break out of it, one would have to completely reverse one's thoughts. This was something that almost no one could do. Chuli saw a stone in the west, but it was actually in the east. He saw that he should go east, but he was actually going west. He saw that he should go up, but he was actually going down. Everything was reversed. Ding Ruijie, who was inside the formation, could not see clearly. She was already dizzy as she walked around in circles. She was about to use her secret skill to escape the formation. Chuli glided into the formation and silently shot out a petrifying finger. Ding Ruijie had amazing intuition. She sensed danger and quickly dodged to the right. TSS. Ding Ruijie's body stiffened. She had amazing intuition for danger. Unfortunately, she was inside the formation and did not have time to use her secret skill. She was still affected by the formation. She should have dodged to the left, but she dodged to the right instead. As a result, she was hit by the petrifying finger. Chuli took advantage of the moment when she froze to launch a few more petrifying fingers. Then, he suddenly appeared beside her. Before she could react, he instantly destroyed her dantian and crippled her cultivation. Ding Ruijie fell to the ground and stared at him coldly. Her expression was still calm. She was not angry at being restrained or having her martial arts crippled. Instead, there was a hint of relief. Her face became even paler. There was a faint hint of purple on her face. Her vitality had dimmed. Chuli let out a long sigh of relief. He was really lucky to have set up such a meticulously planned trap. All his previous frustrations were instantly released. He frowned as he looked at Ding Ruijie's pale face. Her lifespan was greatly reduced. After her martial arts was crippled, her body became even worse. Her vitality was like a candle in the wind. It was shaky and could be extinguished at any time. His mind turned quickly. He deduced that Ding Ruijie's secret skill must have consumed her lifespan. This was understandable. The more powerful the secret skill, the greater the cost. This was the rule of heaven and earth. Otherwise, the Prophecy Pavilion would have dominated the world if they could use these powerful secret skills at will. Chuli said in a low voice, "Senior Ding, why do you have to do this?" Ding Ruijie's voice was hoarse. "In the end, I still lost to you." Chuli said, "Why do you have to do this? I've lived long enough. This is fine." Ding Ruijie said, "Just give me a quick death." Chuli said, "I want to ask if the Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill can be passed down to me." Ding Ruijie looked surprised. "You want to learn the Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill?" Chuli nodded. "It's very powerful. I advise you to give up." Ding Ruijie said, "The Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill requires a person with unique aptitude to cultivate it. If the aptitude is not up to par, you'll die instantly from the backlash." Chuli said, "I think I have the aptitude to cultivate it." Ding Ruijie smiled faintly and did not comment. Chuli could already see what she was thinking. He knew that she did not care. However, he frowned. Ding Ruijie was not lying. The Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill required sufficient aptitude to cultivate. Forcefully cultivating it would lead to death. There was no chance of survival. Therefore, the Prophecy Pavilion was not worried about the secret skill being leaked. Chuli sighed. "How many secret skills does Senior Ding have? Do you think I will pass them to you? Are there no secret manuals? Even if there are secret manuals, you won't be able to cultivate them." Ding Ruijie said, "These secret manuals require the Prophecy Pavilion's basic heart technique to cultivate. I advise you to give up." Chuli frowned. "Are there no exceptions?" "No," Ding Ruijie said. Her expression was calm, as if she was not affected by the current situation. She was indeed determined to die. Chuli could not do anything about it. However, he also found out that the secret manual she hid was in her valley. "What is the Prophecy Pavilion's basic heart technique?" Chuli asked. "The Heavenly Heart Technique," Ding Ruijie said. Chapter 1249. Chuli asked, "Does cultivating the Heavenly Heart technique require special qualities? If you don't have any special aptitude, you will definitely die if you cultivate it." Ding Ruijie looked at him indifferently and said, "You dare to cultivate it? There's no harm in trying, right?" Chuli asked. Ding Ruijie smiled faintly. "That depends on your luck. Once it's not suitable for cultivation, you'll die. There's no way you'll get lucky. Besides, it's not like your injuries will worsen bit by bit. You'll die instantly." Chuli frowned. He didn't expect this Heavenly Heart Sutra to be so vicious. Once one didn't meet the requirements, they would die. Ding Ruijie said, "If you want to die, I won't stop you." Chuli asked, "Don't tell me that the Prophecy Pavilion's martial arts have no way to restrain it?" "Yes," Ding Ruijie said indifferently. The heaven-defying art is at Goddess Attraction Mountain. Chu frowned and remained silent. Ding Ruijie said, "The disciples of Goddess Attraction Mountain almost never appear, nor do they oppose the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets. Thus, having them is equivalent to not having them. As long as the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets does not go overboard, Goddess Attraction Mountain will not interfere." Chu said, "In that case, only Goddess Attraction Mountain can keep the Prophecy Pavilion in check." "Yes," Ding Ruijie said lightly. From her mind, Chu knew that the Destiny Pavilion and Goddess Attraction Mountain had a very deep relationship. The key to this relationship was the Stargazing Pavilion. The founder of the Stargazing Pavilion was a woman, and this woman's husband was the founder of Goddess Attraction Mountain. The Pavilion of Divine Mysteries' secret arts originated from the Stargazing Pavilion and were created by its disciples. Since the Immortal Attraction Mountain could restrain the Stargazing Pavilion, it could naturally restrain the Pavilion of Divine Mysteries as well. Chu shook his head. The relationship between them was very complicated. If he could not see Ding Ruijie's mind, it would be very difficult to understand. Chu remained silent. It seemed that there was no hope of restraining the Prophecy Pavilion. He could only cultivate the secret skills of the Prophecy Pavilion. However, the Heavenly Heart technique was so powerful that it was an extremely risky gamble. He would have to think carefully about whether or not to cultivate it. If he could cultivate the Heavenly Heart Sutra, he felt that there would be endless benefit. At the very least, he would be able to increase the might of the Nature Restoration Manifestation. He might even be able to pry into the mysteries of heaven. Thinking of this, his heart was burning. Ding Ruijie said, "If you kill me, be careful of the revenge of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. Their disciples were killed, and they can even find out who the murderer is." Chu stared at her. Ding Ruijie lightly said, "This isn't a threat. I'm just telling you lest you regret it in the future." Chu asked, "Senior Ding, do you think I'll show you mercy?" "No," Ding Ruijie said. She knew how strong Chuli's killing intent was. He had to get rid of her, or else she would not stop killing him. Both of them would fight to the death, and only one of them could live. Zhao Dai would not let go of this opportunity. Chu asked, "Senior Ding, do you have any last words?" "That's all," Ding Ruijie said faintly. "I'm leaving first. You'll follow me later." "That might not be the case." Chu smiled. "I have a request," Ding Ruijie said. Chu said, "Speak." Ding Ruijie said, "I want to be buried with Shixiang." Chu was surprised. "Your senior brother?" "My senior brother died a long time ago, but his grave is still there, in that valley. I'll have to trouble you to bury me in his grave," Ding Ruijie said lightly. Chu pondered for a moment and finally nodded slowly. "All right." He read Ding Ruijie's thoughts. Indeed, there were no traps or ambushes. Instead, she was eager to be buried together with her senior brother. This way, it would be easier to find him in the realm beyond heavens. Otherwise, they would be too far apart. Chu once again appeared in the ravine that he had been to before. He was holding Ding Ruijie's corpse in his hand. This time, he did not mercilessly destroy the flower and behead Ding Ruijie. This was because Ding Ruijie's lifespan had come to an end. Even if he had a spirit medicine like the Spirit Blessing Pill, he would not be able to save her. In a situation where her lifespan had come to an end, the Spirit Blessing Pill would be ineffective. Ding Ruijie was dead, and no one could save her. Hence, he did not have to be merciless and let her be buried together with his senior brother. The formation in the ravine was still there, and it continued to operate. He quickly entered the ravine and buried Ding Ruijie. Finally, he came to a wooden house and found a box under a bamboo bed. The small box looked like it was used to store jewelry. It looked very ordinary, and the purple paint gave off a dark glow. He opened it to take a look. There were only 3 yellowing silk books in the box. He took them out and flipped through them. One of them had the words Heavenly Heart Technique written on it, and it was overflowing with ancient meaning. The other one was a Taoist scripture with no heart technique, and the last one was Appearing Heaven Technique. Chu Li reached out to take it and flipped through it carefully. He nodded in satisfaction. Other than the Taoist scripture, the other two books were impressive secret skills. Needless to say, the Heavenly Heart Technique was the basic heart technique of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion. The other book, the Peering Heaven Technique, was even more amazing. It was a secret skill that could see through destiny. He was overjoyed. If he could cultivate both of them, he would not be inferior to the disciples of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion. He disappeared in a flash and appeared in the imperial residence of King An. In his own courtyard, Chu Li sat in the pagoda and looked at the 3 secret manuals on the stone table thoughtfully. He was feeling the aura of the 3 secret manuals, and using his intuition to determine their degree of danger, he wanted to see if he could cultivate them. The intuition of a grandmaster was a very mysterious power. It could predict danger. He could not tell where this power came from, but he firmly believed that if there was danger in cultivating the secret skills of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion, he should be able to sense it. It was better not to cultivate it. He reached out and pressed on the secret manual of the Heavenly Heart Technique. His mind turned and he wanted to cultivate it. A vague intuition appeared in his heart, but it did not allow him to touch this secret manual. Chu Li frowned. If that was the case, he was really not suitable to cultivate the Heavenly Heart Technique. He was not fated with it. He reached out and pressed on the other Peering Heaven Technique. As soon as the thought of cultivating it appeared, a surge of warnings appeared in his heart, telling him that he must not cultivate it. Chu Li looked at this Peering Heaven Technique thoughtfully. It seemed that he was not fated with this Peering Heaven Technique, so he could not cultivate it. He believed in his intuition. If it said that he could not cultivate it and should stay far away, then he would not cultivate it and stay far away. Otherwise, he would be digging his own grave. He stuffed the Peering Heaven Technique directly into his chest, and looked at the Heavenly Heart Technique on the table. After thinking for a while, his intuition only told him that there was danger, but it was not as strong as the Peering Heaven Technique. What did this mean? Did it mean that cultivating it would only be dangerous, but not necessarily fatal? However, danger was also troublesome. It seemed that he was not suitable to cultivate it. Should he cultivate it or not? He stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. His mind was spinning, weighing the pros and cons. He could not decide for a moment. The sound of footsteps was heard. Xiao Shi came in. Her white tunic fluttered in the wind. She did not have a white veil on her face, revealing her beautiful face. "What are you thinking about?" She looked at Chu Li curiously. She came to the pagoda, and as soon as she sat down, she saw the Heavenly Heart Technique on the stone table. She took it and flipped through it. She raised her head in surprise. "Where did you get this?" "I picked it up," Chu Li said. Xiao Shi was surprised. "Isn't this the Divine Intelligence Pavilion's Heavenly Heart Technique?" "Yes," Chu Li said. Xiao Shi exclaimed, "I didn't expect to finally encounter it." Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "Too bad I can't cultivate it. P.S. Update complete. Recommended Mao Su's Sunny Days Again, a very good female lead novel." Chapter 1250. Xiao Shi smiled. "Why can't I cultivate it?" She flipped open the Heavenly Heart Technique, and flipped through it quickly. She put it back on the table and said, "The Divine Design Pavilion's martial arts have a high requirement for talent. You don't meet the requirements, so you can't cultivate it, right?" Chu Li nodded. Xiao Shi looked at the Heavenly Heart Technique on the table thoughtfully and said casually, "Then aren't you wasting your efforts?" She knew how rare the Heavenly Heart Technique was. It was the secret skill of the Divine Design Pavilion. The people in the Divine Design Pavilion were smarter than monkeys. There were only advantages and no disadvantages. He must have spent a lot of effort to get the heavenly heart technique. Seo sure could imagine how depressed Chu would be if he couldn't cultivate the secret skill that he painstakingly obtained. She didn't sympathize with him. Instead, she found it interesting. She had seen too much of Chu-Li's confidence and ease. It was especially interesting to see him frowning. Chu-Li said snappily, "What a waste of effort." Seo sure said, "This heavenly heart technique doesn't seem that difficult, right?" She felt that it was easy after reading it, so she tried to cultivate it. Instantly, her mind was clear. She had been cultivating the spirit crane breathing technique. Unknowingly, she had a trace of inner energy. This inner energy was different from normal inner energy. It was in between inner energy and nourishing inner energy. It was extremely beneficial to the body. She usually didn't care about it since she didn't cultivate martial arts. She only persisted in the breathing technique. After looking at the mental cultivation method of the heavenly heart art, she couldn't help but practice according to the heavenly heart art once. It was extremely smooth, and she didn't feel the slightest bit of strain. After practicing it once, she felt extremely comfortable, as if she had just woken up from a good sleep. Her spirit was high, her mind was clear, and her thoughts were faster than usual. It was too wonderful for words. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Good heart technique." Chu-Li frowned and looked at her. "Don't tell me you learned it?" Although she had the titanium sarira, he could still vaguely read her mind. It was just that it wasn't that clear. He could vaguely see that her eyes were brighter than before. It was different from usual. "I practiced it once. It was very interesting," Seo sure smiled. "Could it be that my talent is just right to cultivate this?" Chu-Li was shocked and quickly said, "Don't cultivate it blindly. This heavenly heart technique is very dangerous. Don't make a fuss out of nothing." Seo sure said disapprovingly, "Could it be that it can kill someone?" "That's right." Chu-Li scoffed. "If your aptitude doesn't match, you'll definitely die if you practice it." Xiao Shi frowned at him, then looked at the heavenly heart technique on the table. She shook her head and smiled. "Does the Divine Mystery Pavilion's martial arts have such a magical effect? This isn't a joke. Don't mess around." Chu-Li frowned. Seeing that Seo Shi did not seem to care at all, he felt a headache coming on. Seo Shi was indifferent to life and death. She did not have many scruples when she did things. The more he said it was dangerous, the more she wanted to try it out. But if he said it was not serious, she would still try it out. Xiao Shi said, "It's so dangerous, all the more reason for me to practice." Chu-Li said snappily, "Just calm down for a bit." Seo Shi smiled and said, "Chu-Li, you're now the pillar of the House of High Dukes, the pillar of the sea. If anything were to happen to you, it would be disastrous. I don't really care, what's the harm in trying?" Chu-Li rubbed between his eyebrows and shook his head helplessly. Seo Shi said, "Don't worry, my instincts are very accurate. Cultivating this won't be a problem." Chu-Li knew that it was useless to object. Even if he objected, she would still practice it. Instead of that, he might as well practice it in front of him. So he frowned and said, "Just try it, don't force yourself. I'm not tired of living and looking for death." Seo Shi rolled her eyes at him. Chu-Li nodded helplessly. "All right then, I'll watch from the side. You can practice it now." Seo Shi closed her eyes and began to cultivate. The clear energy circulated one cycle after another in her body, flowing smoothly. After one cycle, her mind became clearer. After more than 10 cycles, she felt light and her mind was extremely fast. It was as if nothing in the world could be hidden from her. One could know the autumn by looking at a leaf, one could know the world by looking at a drop of water. It was as if the mysteries of heaven and earth could be understood with just a thought. It was as if the world was within her thoughts. The four corners of heaven and earth, since the beginning of time, everything was in her heart. She was the master of the universe, the god of heaven and earth. Chuli saw that she was in a trance, but her eyes were clear and bright, so he coughed softly. This sound was imbued with the heart technique of Mahavairocana's immobility scripture. It was like the evening drum and morning bell. It shook Seo Shur awake and pulled her down from the faraway void. It was like a blow to her head. She suddenly woke up and turned to look at Chuli. Chuli hurriedly asked, "How was it?" Seo Shur felt as if her soul had left her body. She could not help but have wild thoughts. Chuli's shout directly knocked her back to her original position, and she regained her consciousness. She could not help but break out in a cold sweat. If it was not for that shout, she would have gone crazy. Seo Shur nodded lightly. "It's a little dangerous." Chuli looked at her thoughtfully. After a while, he could no longer see through Seo Shur's thoughts. It was obvious that the Heaven Heart technique was amazing. She had actually learned the basics in just a short while. It seemed like the most suitable person to cultivate this was not him but Seo Shur. Chuli said, "How about this, you continue to cultivate and I'll protect you. Then you have to watch closely. The more I cultivate, the more I feel like I'm omnipotent." Seo Shur said, "I almost believed you." Chuli nodded and said, "I will wake you up in time." Seo Shur's body was clear and her mind was exceptionally sharp. Cultivating this Heaven Heart technique was dangerous, but the benefits were great. Hence, she continued to cultivate. The Heaven Heart technique circulated again and again. Chuli was always able to wake her up when she had wild thoughts. She felt like she was omnipotent and the master of the world. He would shout and shake her back to reality. Once her mind was clear, she continued to cultivate. The two of them cultivated for the whole night. The next morning, Seo Shur did not feel sleepy at all. She looked at the golden sun shining on her body. She shook her head and smiled. "I didn't sleep for the whole night and I'm still full of energy. This Heaven Heart technique is really not bad. I cultivated it correctly." Chuli said, "When you cultivate, you must have me by your side. Don't cultivate by yourself." Alright, this Heaven Heart technique does have the ability to lose one's mind. Without you by my side, it's really troublesome. Seo Shur smiled and said, "I think if this goes on, I'll be able to learn the basics in no time." Chuli nodded. She had already learned the basics. Her progress was extremely fast. He could clearly feel it. However, it was enough for her to cultivate to this point for now. Her mind was like electricity. He did not want her to cultivate any further in case she could really pry into the secrets of heaven. There was a price to pry into the secrets of heaven. It would usually shorten one's lifespan. Chuli did not want her to pay such a price. He decided to try cultivating it himself. If there was any danger, he would just destroy it. After Seo Shur left, Chuli returned to the house. He sat cross-legged on the bed and began to circulate the Heaven Heart technique. As the Heaven Heart technique circulated, the Buddha in the void of his mind suddenly changed. The Buddha, who was chanting the Mahavairocana's immobility scripture with his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes. There was no sadness or joy in his gaze. It was as if he was looking down on all things and observing all living beings. The Heaven Heart technique was suddenly messed up. It then disappeared from his memory. He was at a loss and did not know how to cultivate. Chuli opened his eyes in shock. Chapter 1251. Chuli frowned as he looked at the void in his mind, at Mahavairocana Buddha. The Great Light Scripture, Mahavairocana Buddha's Immobility Scripture, Heavenly Demon Scripture, Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. These four scriptures belonged to four Buddhas, one Buddha body and four Buddha head. They had always been quietly chanting in their minds, doing nothing but chanting. This was Mahavairocana Buddha's first move, yet he had already dispelled the Heavenly Heart Scripture. If it could alarm Mahavairocana Buddha, it must be something extraordinary. There must be something wrong with this Heavenly Heart Scripture. He frowned as he pondered, but nothing came out of it. Thus, He picked up the Heavenly Heart scripture and sensed it again. It was still dangerous, so it was best not to cultivate it. After some thought, he imprinted it in his mind again, closed his eyes, and began to cultivate. The result was no different from the previous time. Mahavairocana Buddha opened his eyes again, and with an emotionless gaze, he dispelled the memory of the Heavenly Heart scripture in his mind. Chuli opened his eyes and frowned as he stared at the Heavenly Heart scripture. His thoughts were as fast as lightning. After a while, he decided to trust Mahavairocana Buddha's judgment and intuition. It was obvious that Mahavairocana Buddha valued the danger of the Heavenly Heart scripture more than his intuition, and directly cut off the opportunity to cultivate it. Since Mahavairocana Buddha had been alarmed, if he continued to be stubborn and blinded by greed, and insisted on cultivating it, he would be digging his own grave. Suddenly, he flew to Tianshu courtyard. Xiao Shi was reading in the courtyard, dressed in a flawless white tunic. When she saw him, a smile appeared on her beautiful face. "Shall we continue cultivating?" Chuli shook his head. "No." "Then I'll cultivate it myself," Xiao Shi said. "I think my aptitude is suitable for this." Chuli said, "You can't cultivate it either. I'm here to cripple it." Xiao Shi frowned at him. "What's wrong with you?" Chuli knew there was no point in talking, so he sat opposite Xiao Shi and reached out to grab her left wrist. "Cripple it first." Xiao Shi's wrist struggled, but she could not break free from Chu Li's grip. After Chu Li's inner energy entered her body, it instantly devoured her inner energy. Her meridians were emptied in the blink of an eye, and all her cultivation had turned into water. Suddenly, she felt weak, as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. Her vigorous spirit had also weakened, and the tiredness from not sleeping for a whole night seemed to have found its way to her. Xiao Shi's beautiful face darkened as she glared at him coldly. "Chuli, you've really gone mad." Chuli said, "No matter how I think about it, I still don't think it's appropriate. The Tianxin technique can't be casually cultivated." "I think it's great," Xiao Shi said snappily. "Your mind is clear, there's nothing wrong with it. Who knows, maybe I'm suitable for this. You just had to cripple my martial arts, you're despicable." Chuli shook his head. "If you cultivate the Heavenly Heart technique, will the Prophecy Pavilion come looking for you?" Xiao Shi frowned at him. Chuli said, "You don't get involved in karma at first, but once you start cultivating this, things will get out of hand. They'll definitely come looking for you, and they might even want to take you in." "Isn't that a good thing?" Xiao Shi scoffed. The Prophecy Pavilion was also a famous sect. Although it was not one of the 8 major sects in the Fu dynasty, its reputation was not inferior to the 8 major sections. It was only because of the stargazing pavilion that it could not be listed among the 8 major sections. "It's fine if I don't become a disciple of the Prophecy Pavilion." Chuli shook his head. He had seen the consequences of Ding Ruijie using the secret skill with his own eyes. He was deeply afraid of it, and would never allow Xiao Shi to enter the Prophecy Pavilion. "You're being unreasonable," Xiao Shi scoffed. Chuli said, "In any case, it's better if you don't cultivate it. Fortunately, your cultivation is shallow now. It's not too late to cripple it." Xiao Shi glared at him fiercely. She struggled her wrist, wanting to shake off his big hand. However, Chuli did not let go. A stream of inner energy instantly entered her body, restoring her cultivation level. However, it was the pure aura of the spirit crane breathing technique. Xiao Shi rolled her eyes at him. Chuli shook his head and sighed. "I was thinking too simply. Now it seems that this Heavenly Heart technique is a big problem. I have to think of a way to deal with it." "How?" Xiao Shi scoffed. Chuli said, "Send it to the Holy Church of Light." "Divert the trouble?" Xiao Shi frowned. "Sun Mingyue isn't someone to be trifled with." Chuli smiled. "The Prophecy Pavilion and the Holy Church of Light are enemies now. Sun Mingyue won't reject it. This was all thanks to him. It was Ding Ruijie's provocation that caused Sun Mingyue to be dissatisfied with the prophecy pavilion. This incident also gave him some inspiration. It was easy to destroy the relationship between sects, but it was hard to repair it. His heavenly demonic power was extremely easy to turn things around. He could achieve the effect of moving 1,000 gold with little effort. Then be careful. Don't play with fire. Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li nodded. My lady, don't think about the heavenly heart technique anymore. It's not a proper skill. It's better if you don't cultivate it. All right. Xiao Shi scoffed. She still trusted Chu Li's judgment. Since he said it was impossible to cultivate, then she would not cultivate it. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. Divine Light Basilica, Great Light Peak. The sunset illuminated the basilica beautifully. The entire basilica was bathed in red light. Chu Li stood at the bottom of the stairs and took out 2 secret manuals. I got these 2 secret techniques from Ding Ruijie. My saint, please have a look. Sun Mingyue's white gown was dyed red. Her eyes were as clear as water. There was less coldness and sternness in them and more gentleness. She looked at him. The secret techniques of the prophecy pavilion? Yes. Chu Li nodded solemnly. Bring them up, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li stepped up the stairs and placed the 2 secret techniques on the table. Sun Mingyue picked up the heavenly heart technique and flipped through it. Then, she looked at the peering heaven technique and looked up at Chu Li in surprise. Chu Li's expression was solemn. He lowered his eyes and was more respectful than before. Sun Mingyue flipped through the 2 secret techniques again and sighed. You're really lucky. Chu Li replied, yes. Sun Mingyue stared at him with her bright eyes. Logically, the secret techniques of the prophecy pavilion would never be leaked. How did you get them? I found them at Ding Ruijie's residence, Chu Li replied. You're really lucky. Sun Mingyue shook her head and sighed. So, you killed Ding Ruijie? Yes. Chu Li nodded slowly. Sun Mingyue frowned and stared at him. You know you're in big trouble, right? Yes, Chu Li replied. Sun Mingyue chuckled. Actually, the Holy Church would have protected you even if you didn't hand over these 2 secret techniques. The prophecy pavilion would definitely seek revenge. They would never tolerate a disciple from the prophecy pavilion being killed. The prophecy pavilion had become more and more tyrannical in recent years. It was said that they were going to become one of the 8 major sections. They could be seen everywhere in the Fu dynasty. It was said that they had also extended their reach to the other 4 countries. It was against common sense for Chu Li to hand over these 2 secret techniques. Logically, the secret techniques that he obtained did not have to be handed over to the Holy Church. He could cultivate them himself or pass them on to others. Sun Mingyue immediately understood Chu Li's intentions after thinking about it. Chu Li replied, I don't want the Holy Church to protect me for nothing. I have to contribute something. It's rare for you to think that way. Sun Mingyue asked, You didn't cultivate these 2 secret techniques. Chu Li shook his head. I don't dare to cultivate them. Oh. Sun Mingyue chuckled. You're bold and unscrupulous, but there's something you don't dare to do? The prophecy pavilion is unpredictable. Who knows if their secret techniques can be cultivated? Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Moreover, once you've cultivated them, they'll definitely have a way to control them. Won't you be under their control? Smart. Sun Mingyue nodded in approval. Chu Li replied, I'm afraid of death. Sun Mingyue chuckled. She was extremely happy to obtain these 2 secret techniques. She was unprecedentedly happy. Chapter 1252. Chu Li said, I heard from Ding Ruijie that Stargazing Pavilion can't restrain Prophecy Pavilion. The only thing that can restrain Prophecy Pavilion is Goddess Attraction Mountain's Heaven-Defying Technique. Heaven-Defying Technique. Sun Mingyue pondered. She really did not know about this. Prophecy Pavilion and Stargazing Pavilion's actions were mysterious, and it was difficult for outsiders to see through them. Sun Mingyue was peerless in martial arts, and almost no one below the enlightened master could defeat her. The Holy Church of Light also had a strong foundation, but she did not know about this secret. Chu Li said, "That's why we can't deal with Prophecy Pavilion." Sun Mingyue frowned. Her excitement gradually dissipated when she thought about this. Although the Holy Church of Light was powerful, they could not defeat Prophecy Pavilion. As long as Prophecy Pavilion kept spreading the news that she, the Saint, and the Holy Church of Light were enemies, people would inevitably feel uneasy. Now that the Holy Church of Light was dominant, the other three sects would definitely take the opportunity to stir up trouble. Although she was not afraid, it would inevitably give the imperial family an excuse. The Holy Church of Light seemed powerful now, but she had to be more careful. The more powerful she was, the more she had to tread on thin ice. She had to be aware of hidden dangers to prevent herself from falling miserably. Chu Li was secretly happy to see Sun Mingyue like this. It was difficult to deal with Prophecy Pavilion alone, but it would be different if Sun Mingyue was involved. Chu Li continued, "In my opinion, we should take the initiative." "How?" Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li said, "Break into Prophecy Pavilion and destroy their lair." "Wishful thinking." Sun Mingyue laughed. Chu Li said, "It's precisely because of wishful thinking that they won't expect it and won't guard against it. It's highly likely that we'll succeed." Sun Mingyue frowned and pondered. Chu Li said, "Probably no one has the same idea. Furthermore, Prophecy Pavilion has been arrogant all these years and has made many enemies. If we attack, they won't be willing to be left out." That makes sense." Sun Mingyue pondered. Chu Li said, "I've found their lair, but it's protected by formations. Does the Holy Church have any treasured weapons to break their formations?" "No." Sun Mingyue shook her head. Chu Li sighed. "It's a pity that I wasn't able to obtain their secret skill." "Does the Saint know of a secret skill from the Prophecy Pavilion that can disregard formations?" "Oh!" Sun Mingyue was surprised. "You've seen it before?" Chu Li said, "I've seen this secret skill with my own eyes. Once it's performed, I'll become one with heaven and earth will become me. The formation will no longer obstruct me, and I'll be able to come and go as I please. It's truly amazing." Sun Mingyue said in a low voice, "With such a secret skill, we have to guard against it." She was thinking about the Great Light Peak. Chu Li asked, "They won't dare to come over, will they?" Sun Mingyue furrowed her brows and shook her head. "The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries are even bolder than us. Their momentum is too strong now, and their actions have reached an unbridled level. They would definitely do something like this. I want to inspect it myself." With that, she disappeared in a flash. Chu Li shook his head helplessly. He did not expect her to act so swiftly and decisively. Boom! Suddenly, a muffled sound came from afar, like rolling thunder in spring. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror. The Great Light Peak was shrouded in a formation. Usually, even if he used the omniscient mirror, he would not be able to observe too far away. However, the Divine Light Basilica's position was special. Standing there, he could observe the entire Great Light Peak. He saw Sun Mingyue and a middle-aged man colliding with each other. The middle-aged man was sent flying. This middle-aged man was handsome and had a slender figure. He was a rare beauty. Even at his age, he still had an indescribable charm. After their palms collided, Sun Mingyue's white clothes fluttered in the wind. Instead of retreating, she moved forward and caught up to the middle-aged man. Then, she struck him with her palm again. The middle-aged man countered with his palm but was sent flying again. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air and shot it at Sun Mingyue. Sun Mingyue moved like a ghost and instantly turned into a shadow. The blood arrow hit the shadow and fell to the ground without any resistance. Sun Mingyue appeared in front of the middle-aged man and struck him with her palm again. Her palm was soft and graceful, like a lover's caress. However, the middle-aged man retreated, as if he was avoiding a snake or a scorpion. He used Sun Mingyue's palm energy to speed up, but no matter how fast he was, he could not outrun Sun Mingyue's body movement technique. Sun Mingyue caught up with him in an instant and struck him with her palm again. Chu Li felt that the middle-aged man's cultivation level was profound. It was similar to his own. He was already a top-notch grandmaster and rarely had a worthy opponent. It was no wonder he dared to come to the Great Light Peak. It was obvious that he had something up his sleeve. However, in front of Sun Mingyue, such a master was like a child in front of a strong man. He could not withstand a single blow. Chu Li felt a chill in his heart. As his cultivation level deepened, he could feel how terrifying Sun Mingyue's cultivation level was. However, he did not expect that he could not withstand a single blow. The depth of Sun Mingyue's cultivation level was shocking and beyond his imagination. The middle-aged man suddenly shrank in the air. His clothes fluttered as if he was in a strong wind. He instantly grew taller. Then, his body movement technique suddenly sped up and he shot into the distance like a stream of light. Sun Mingyue stood where she was. Her eyes were expressionless as she struck out with a divine light fist. Bang! It was like a clap of thunder. Chu Li saw the void collapse. The fist seemed to have broken through the void. The middle-aged man's body trembled and then exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The blood mist fell and formed a bright pattern. However, there was no corpse left. Chu Li felt a chill down his spine. If the middle-aged man ended up like this, Chu Li and Sun Mingyue would not fare any better. They were purely suppressed by their cultivation level and could not resist at all. The same divine light fist was so powerful in her hands. It seemed that he had underestimated the divine light fist. The divine light fist was as famous as the light blade. It was one of the most powerful martial arts in the scripture of Great Light. Naturally, it had its own secret. Most people cultivated the divine light fist, but their progress was average. Although the power they could unleash was strong, it was not terrifying. Everyone thought that the divine light fist was just SOSO. After he saw this fist, he decided to study the divine light fist well. He wanted to master it and rediscover the secrets of the scripture of Great Light. He wanted to work hard and improve his cultivation level as soon as possible. Without the support of a strong cultivation level, all extraordinary skills were flashy but useless. It was difficult for him to improve his cultivation level now, but he could not be greedy and put in hard work on extraordinary skills. Instead, he would look down on the basic hard work. He decided to go into isolated cultivation again to improve his cultivation level. Sun Mingyue appeared in the divine light basilica in a flash. Chu Li calmed himself down and put away the omniscient mirror. He asked, "Did you really run into people from the prophecy pavilion?" "Yes." Sun Mingyue's eyebrows were solemn. Chu Li frowned. "They're quite bold." He did not expect the prophecy pavilion to be hostile towards the Holy Church of Light. Logically, Sun Mingyue was hostile towards the prophecy pavilion, but the prophecy pavilion should only hate him. Since they were spying on the Great Light Peak, it was obvious that they did not have good intentions. They were going against the Holy Church of Light. "I wonder how many secrets they've uncovered," Sun Mingyue said in a low voice. She was extremely angry. The prophecy pavilion had disregarded and humiliated the Holy Church of Light by recklessly going to the Great Light Peak. As a saint, it was as if she had been slapped in the face. Chapter 1253. Chu Li asked, "Does the prophecy pavilion really want to start a war with us? Humans don't intend to harm the tiger, but the tiger will devour them." Sun Mingyue's brows were cold. "Looks like we'll have to teach them a lesson." Chu Li perked up and quickly asked, "Saint, are you really going to fight?" Sun Mingyue asked, "Do you know where their lair is?" Chu replied, I've been to their lair, Cloud Dream Mountain, but I couldn't enter because it was protected by a formation. I don't have a secret skill like the Prophecy Pavilion. This formation is so mysterious that I can't break it in a short time, so I can't do anything to them. He guessed that Sun Mingyue knew where the Prophecy Pavilion's lair was, but she might not have been there herself. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Sun Mingyue said, since they're here, we should go and take a look. Chu frowned. Unfortunately, my formation skills are still shallow, so I can't enter. Why don't I go there and guard and see if I can bump into a disciple from the Prophecy Pavilion and force him to bring me in? Sun Mingyue paced with her hands behind her back, her graceful figure covered by her white tunic. She felt that this was a tricky situation. The Prophecy Pavilion was indeed difficult to deal with. They could enter and leave Great Light Peak freely, but Great Light Peak could not enter and leave Cloud Dream Mountain as they pleased, which gave them an overwhelming advantage. This time, she only noticed the disciples from the Prophecy Pavilion when she personally patrolled. Before she went out, they had come countless times and investigated the Great Light Peak for a long time. Once a fight broke out, they could attack Great Light Peak at any time and hide in Cloud Dream Mountain. The Holy Church of Light could not do anything to them. Once they fell out with each other, they would always have to be on guard against their sneak attacks. As she thought of this, her face under the white veil became solemn, and her eyes became solemn. Chu said, Saint, the Prophecy Pavilion isn't that scary. After all, they have fewer people. That doesn't mean they're not scary. Sun Mingyue shook her head. Chu said, they're very good at manipulating people. I'm just afraid that they'll encourage other sects to go against us. If that's the case, we have no choice but to fight? Sun Mingyue turned to look at him. Once they made it clear, it would not be easy for the Prophecy Pavilion to incite other sects to deal with the Holy Church of Light. If they did not make it clear that they were hostile, it would give the Prophecy Pavilion an opportunity to take advantage of them. Chuli's tone suddenly changed. Actually, it's not that serious. It's not the time for the two factions to go to war yet. They might not have come to Great Light Peak to deal with us. It could be their style of doing things. For the time being, I'll deal with them alone. When he saw Sun Mingyue's eyes flicker, he changed his mind and no longer encouraged the Holy Church of Light to start a war with the Prophecy Pavilion. He did not want to arouse Sun Mingyue's suspicions, which would be too obvious and counterproductive. Sun Mingyue was more intelligent than most people. It was very likely that she would realize what had happened and become wary of Chu. Then, it would be even more difficult for her to mobilize the Holy Church of Light against the Prophecy Pavilion. How are you going to deal with it? Sun Mingyue asked calmly. Chu laughed. We'll wait for them to show up and raid their lair. You're quite bold. Sun Mingyue said. Chu said, this is what the saint meant by give and take. We'll intimidate them. Don't think that Great Light Peak is their backyard where they can come and go as they please. The Holy Church of Light is not to be trifled with. Sun Mingyue smiled. Do you really dare to go? Chu said, if I can't win, I'll run. My light body technique is quite good. He could tell that Sun Mingyue had not made up her mind to deal with the Prophecy Pavilion. After all, the Prophecy Pavilion was powerful, especially the hidden forces. Although the Holy Church of Light was strong, they did not want to cause too much trouble. However, she was not afraid of conflicts between disciples. But Saint, do we have any other martial arts or secret skills? Chu asked. I don't think I can do anything to the Prophecy Pavilion. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Your cultivation level is not high enough. What's the use of martial arts or secret skills? Chu said, my cultivation level is not high enough, Sun Mingyue said. There's always someone better. Cultivate honestly, there's no shortcut. Chu laughed. Then where did the saint learn all these skills from? Did you start cultivating when you were in your mother's womb? Half of my martial arts is natural. Sun Mingyue said, "You can't compare." Natural. Chu Li nodded slowly. It was obvious that she had a fortuitous encounter. Sun Mingyue said, "Focus on your cultivation. Don't worry about the prophecy pavilion." "I'm afraid that others might not recognize the Cloud Dream Mountain," Chu Li said. Sun Mingyue said, "I have someone in mind. Where are you going to cultivate in seclusion?" "Gale City," Chu Li said. "I'm worried about Gale Branch. Aren't you afraid that the people from the Prophecy Pavilion will go there?" Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li said, "If I'm not there, they'll definitely attack the disciples of Gale Branch. I'll send someone to protect Gale Branch. You can cultivate in seclusion at Small Light Peak." Sun Mingyue said. Zhao Dai was too simple-minded and easy to be taken advantage of, but it was also because of this that he could be very useful. "Yes, thank you, Saint." Chu Li fist saluted. He then returned to Small Light Peak and began to set up a formation. He wanted to cover Small Light Peak with a formation so that he would know if anyone came close. Even if they were thousands of miles away, he could return in an instant. After setting up the formation, he returned to the High Duke's public house and began to cultivate in seclusion. Outside Snowy Moon Valley, a long howl was heard. It was clear and resounding, and it was continuous. After the howl, there was a long yell. "Li Hanyan, Miss Li, please come out." Li Hanyan was dressed in a green outfit and was practicing her swordsmanship on the martial arts field. When she heard the yell, she frowned and thought that the voice was familiar. It might be someone she knew, so she sheathed her sword and fluttered out of Snowy Moon Valley. She saw Fang Qingyang in front of a pine forest outside the valley. Fang Qingyang's green robe fluttered under the setting sun. He was like a jade tree that stood in the wind, handsome and elegant. When he saw Li Hanyan, Fang Qingyang smiled and fist saluted. "Miss Li." Li Hanyan was stunned. "Xiao Fang, it's you?" Fang Qingyang smiled. "It's me. You've recovered from your injuries." Li Hanyan said, "You're quite brave to come here." Fang Qingyang smiled. "I came here secretly this time. The people from Tempest Temple don't know." "That's good." Li Hanyan nodded. "What's the matter?" "I have something to tell you, Miss Li," Fang Qingyang said. "Follow me then." Li Hanyan pointed at a mountain peak and turned to flutter away. The two of them arrived at a gazebo on the mountain peak. Li Hanyan sat at a stone table. Fang Qingyang sat opposite her and sighed. "Miss Li, I have something to confess." Li Hanyan looked at him coldly with her bright eyes. Fang Qingyang felt an inexplicable guilt and smiled bitterly. "I'm a disciple of the Holy Church of Light." "The Holy Church of Light." Li Hanyan frowned. "In that case, I saved the wrong person and we're enemies." "No matter what, I'm deeply grateful for Miss Li's saving grace." Fang Qingyang said, "I wonder if Miss Li has ever thought of making peace with the Holy Church." Li Hanyan revealed a smile that seemed to be mocking and ridiculing. Fang Qingyang said, "Actually, we don't have much of a grudge against each other. Miss Li has already taken revenge." "The Holy Church of Light doesn't want to kill me?" You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.